calling the Select Board meeting of Tuesday, December 13th, 2022 to order. First, we will have approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'll note that we have one late addition at item 3G of the Tree City USA Growth Award application. So everyone in favor of approving the agenda with that one addition?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next, we have the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Second. Moved and seconded. I actually wanted to pull out the meeting minutes from, I just had a couple of very small things to.
The select board minutes?
Mhm.
Meeting minutes?
Yep.
Okay. I had a couple of just clarifying questions.
Do you want to do those now before we?
Yeah, so I thought the roundabout for Route 7 and Exchange Street was already approved, so I was kind of surprised by the scoping study project. Is it?
If it's like a final design.
Oh,
We're
okay.
ready before the final design. We had some
So,
concepts earlier.
okay, so it says looking at the possibility. They've already kind of decided that design, haven't they?
They're working on preliminary designs.
Oh, preliminary design, but of a roundabout.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
The sidewalk, the Exchange Street sidewalk, any movement on that at all?
We're still held up in the state.
And do we think that extension is gonna get us what we need, or is that the maximum they'll allow us to extend?
That's the maximum.
Okay.
That's to extend.
And on the opioid, the Janssen settlement agreement, there were payment but no dates in there. Do you know when those are scheduled to go out at all?
We don't know the schedule.
Oh, okay. This is just saying, right, okay. And it's divided up on that schedule, but we don't know when they're coming. Okay, thank you. And thank you to Dustin for the memo on the turkey trot and the information that was included in there as well. Those are my comments.
Okay, those are great. So we had a motion and a second on approving the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. And then the couple of things I just had on the minutes were line 245, change the word road to row, and line 253, I think the word trimming is supposed to be timing.
What was that, 253?
Yeah.
253 and 245.
And 245 was what?
Road to row.
Oh, Kings Row.
And line 272, the word since should be replaced with if, I think.
Is everyone okay with those? Get a motion to approve the minutes with those changes?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
This
Excellent.
big crowd's making you nervous, isn't it?
Yes. It's a very long consent agenda. All right, we have moved on to citizen comments. Is there anyone here for something that is not on the warrant agenda? Yes, come on up.
My phone so I can stay in my 2 minutes.
Yep.
I'm Ann Christie. I live in East Middlebury. Thank you. I know many of you. I had two points that I wanted to make, and then I wanted to make a point after some others have spoken. Can I do that with the rules? Can I speak twice during citizen comments?
Oh, I
Isabel?
Up to you.
believe so.
Okay, great. My first two things I wanted to say is just that, and you've heard this before, but we have our meeting tomorrow, which is the final public information meeting on the master plan. And so it's kind of a key time. And the neighbors of the airport, you know, people who live in the village of East Middlebury, who live in, you know, the developments in Burnham Drive, you know,
Excuse
Airport
me,
Road.
Ann, you're going to have to talk up because these are not mics for the building. These are just mics for the MCTV. So people in the back can't hear you.
Oh, okay, is this better? I took my mask off.
Yes.
Oh, good. Thank you for saying something. Alrighty. It's a question for you that, that you represent the needs of the neighbors in addition to the needs of businesses, Middlebury citizens that are not living near the airport and therefore don't receive any of the impacts from the airport. You know, the noise, the impact on the environment with the animals and plants and with the aquifer, and the property values going down. And so, just to please, that's my request to all of us, that you keep the neighbors' needs in mind as you review documents, in addition to V-Trans and money aspects. So that's the first thing I wanted to share, and I know it's a question, so I want an answer, but I can't ask you for an answer. The next thing I'm just going to read because it's already been composed, but I feel like it expresses some of the concern well. The current design for the master plan for the next 20 years, with the exception of, you know, allowing hangars right in residents' view, and the noise concerns which are there, and no one can do anything to change, because there's noise. But so the changes appear basically benign, but the concern is that the master plan is that it has paved the way for future unintended and undesirable consequences. If the early assumptions made in the process don't fit the final objective, it becomes almost impossible to go back to the beginning to make appropriate changes. So we may well be stuck with an unwanted outcome. I lived through this with the airport extension. It's just for safety. Well, it brought in much larger planes. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Come on up.
Take my mask up as well. Hi. Our names, my wife and myself are here. We're Andrew and Andrea Sambrook. We've been here before several times. We live at 287 Airport Road in Middlebury. I know I've got limited time here. If I may submit, am I allowed to submit a written thing later? So I'll just hit the highlights here. As Ann said, the public meeting is tomorrow night. It's the second public meeting. It's the final meeting. So what we're hoping is that it will be well attended by residents of both East Middlebury and Middlebury, just to come and find out what the plan is, as it is currently drafted. We do ask. I've got a couple of asks of the select board. One of which is to make sure that following that meeting, that the comments and questions of all Middlebury residents are answered promptly and thoroughly. I submitted questions back in August, actually back in July, almost 5 months ago, received the answers at 3 p.m. today. So 5 months it took. I haven't had a chance to review those questions, but the ask here is that you follow up with that and just insist that all Middlebury residents' comments and questions are answered promptly, not the day before, not before the day before the meeting. You also wrote a letter back in September 13th, I think you submitted one, about the master plan, and there were 4 points you'd made: protecting environmental resources, consider changing the location of the hangar envelopes. You talked about Airport Road, plan for improvements on Airport Road, and then the 4th point you made was to ask for better communication process regarding the airport planning. The ask here is that you would follow up on those for either tomorrow or that you follow up on those letters and those 4 very valid points. It is important to attend the meeting, and we do ask that as many East Middlebury residents and Middlebury residents come and find out what the plan is. Just come and find it out. It is important. The master plan proposes at the moment, as it's drafted, $10 million of public funds and an undisclosed amount of private funding. That's $10 million of public funds will be invested in the airport over the next 20 years. But with little or no information about what the economic upside would be. There's lots of talk about economic development, and that's the whole point, I guess, but very little on what that actually is and the details surrounding that. I know top of the town's agenda is affordable housing and childcare, and if for 1 minute you could think of what you could do with $10 million of public funds in regards to both of those things, that would create true economic development in the town. So the final request for the select board is to use your authority to actually ask VTrans to present explicitly what the net economic benefits of investing $10 million of the master plan would be to the town. Chairman Carpenter had promised at a previous select board that this would be done via a separate VTrans presentation once the master plan was in final draft. Well, it's in final draft now, and let's keep that select board commitment and have a healthy debate about how the town could and should benefit from what is a very sizable public investment of funds into the airport. I think that was I guess just on my final point is this is a rare opportunity, I think. This comes around once every 15 to 20 years when the master plan at the airport is actually looked at. And I think we could leave it to VTrans to do that. And obviously as sponsors of the airport, that is their remit. But I think the town has an opportunity to understand how that asset, that state asset, benefits the town, the state, the pilots, the aviation businesses, the residents of East Middlebury, and the new families attracted to the area. So I guess what I'm asking is that now would be a great time to, from a town's perspective, to take a look at what it means to the town, what the asset is to the town itself, and yes, let's look at a next best use of the airport, if it as one of these as the look, as a generational look into what the airport could be. The town of Colchester used to have an airport, and it was transformed into a recreational park with mixed residential homes and a fantastic recreational park, as I say. That the sky didn't fall in there, and it might not do so in Middlebury. All I'm asking is that this is a good point in time. Let's not just leave such an important decision to VTrans. It is situated within Middlebury, and I'd urge the select board to take a look at what that asset means to the town and what it could be. And I'll submit these as well, these comments.
Thank you.
Sure. Andy, if I could just ask a clarifying
Yes.
question of what we presented. Your $10 million figure, do you know if that is proposed like capital expenditures or proposed like operating,
No, None of it's, as far as I know, none of, it's in the actual, if you look at the draft plan, it's at the, it's the new section that they added, the final section, I think it's section 6. It doesn't talk about operations, it's all capital investment, it's recommended. I forgot what the section is, but it's
Okay.
under sort of recommended development plan. So as far as I can see, it is a capital investment.
Okay.
um,
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay.
We also have Judy Weiger Groves on Zoom.
Okay, I'll do her after. Sure.
10 or 12 pages, is that okay?
Okay, as long as it fits in 2 minutes.
Read fast.
I'm Richard McCurr, I'm a neighbor on Kings Row, and at about 4 o'clock today, I thought for sure that plane was going to land in my backyard. It wasn't 200 feet over my roof, and my windows, which are new windows, were rattled. Seems that VTrans is determined to push this plan forward with the most fabricated justification I've ever seen in a sophisticated state organization. It's just amazing to me. Reading over 160 pages, it's clear that the economic justification for this master plan for the airport is just fiction. There's a chart showing 10-year activity at the airport is down by over 40%. So VTrans went looking for another data source. Vermont population's also dropped in the last 10 years by about 10%. But wait, Addison County personal income went up by 4%. That's the rabbit that the VTrans magicians are trying to pull out of the hat to convince us that they need to spend and induce the federal government to spend a great deal of money on doing something that just doesn't seem to be justified or necessary. The data that the VTrans is using should be used to drive the outcome. Not the data that they're using, but the real data. How much demand is there for operations at the airport? They don't have data on that, so they went someplace completely different to look for data that justifies their position. You can't create a project by shopping for the data. You have to create the, I'm sorry, you have to use data that's really there and not just pick and choose, cherry pick from something that's really generally unrelated. So there's a very small number of Middlebury people and some non-Middlebury people that have a stake in the economic outcome of this process. There's a much larger group of Middlebury people who are potentially disadvantaged, and those are neighbors and your constituents. Those are neighbors whose property values may go down, whose quality of life may go down. I really thought that plane was pretty low today. There's only one. It's a very quiet day at the airport, but he was pretty low. So I think the select board representing Middlebury citizens ought to think about whether or not this is a good use of resources and if it's the proper place for the use of those resources. There are lots of other things that Middlebury needs that, you know, the FAA is not going to fund long-term care or child care, but, you know, they're spending the money. Andrew mentioned the $10 million number. A lot of that money is proposed to come from the FAA. So I think the select board ought to think about whether or not they should be encouraging VTrans to pursue this outcome. So one quick story. Long ago and far away, in the deepest, darkest Brazilian jungle, a butterfly flapped his wings. Economists have looked at this phenomenon for the last 100 years, and it has created a great deal of interest in the community of professional economists. The butterfly flapped its wings, sure enough, 3 people show up and want hangers. It's called the butterfly effect. Look at it. People actually pick stocks this way. And it's not a good way to run a project like this. So I hope you'll take into consideration the needs of your constituents, the larger part of your constituents. And by the way, I do know for a fact that the ACEDC, the Economic Development Council, would love to have that land because they could do something with it.
Thank you,
That's it.
Richard. Okay.
Judy?
Oh, yes, actually, I was supposed to go to Judy next. Yep. You can come on up and then, because she's on there.
Judy?
Can you hear me?
We can?
Yes.
Okay. I guess all I would ask in response to the comments that have been made so far is, many of you have been at these meetings where the issues around the airport have come up. You've been here numerous times, as have I. There's a pattern here. And I'm hoping I'm not the only one that's observed the pattern. Part of the pattern is there are questions that have been presented for which there is no real data provided as a response. It's happened over and over and over again. The second part of the pattern is VTrans typically waits until the very last moment before they respond to questions, as Andy indicated earlier. So he sent questions 5 months ago, he got a response today. I sent questions, and then I wait for a response. That's an incredibly important strategy for not giving people that ask the questions enough time to then formulate a response. So if Andy only got a response to his questions today, he has no time to respond before tomorrow. That is not fair. And as Richard just indicated, I think the select board needs to take a stance on that. No, you're not allowed to play this game with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
So I would just implore the rest of you with airport things to try to keep it brief because we are looking at a very long meeting tonight.
I understand, yeah.
Yep.
My name's Eugene Roy. I live at the south end of the runway, on the east side. Built my house in 1978, 79, back when the airport was just a spraying operation. Since then, what had happened back then is what's hounding us today. They removed, and I've said this in front of this board already once, I think, is they removed a bunch of dirt, which was the topsoil, right in front of my house, down about 15 to 18 feet down across the road towards the airport. Cut all the trees down in order to get all the dirt out. Right next to the south side there's a pond that used to be a pond. That's where the beepers would all hang out because we'd hear them all. Well, they're gone. The berm, the dirt's gone. The trees, whatever's grown back up. But ever since they did that, the ground slopes towards the east side. So when I was asking VTran about a berm to be placed, you guys probably read that, says it wouldn't affect any, it wouldn't do anything for noise. But the way they said that, And you can read it, they said airplanes flying up above. Well, I'm not talking about a berm for airplanes flying up above. The berm is made to be right where they rev up to get started to take off. That does block off, the dirt that was there before used to block it off. The trees over there help block it off, not totally, but better. Now they want to expand the airport, and I'm asking them to put that back, something that they took out. They're aware of it. They've got all the specs. They know what happened there. And, they're saying no. And I'd like to have our town stand up for that. There's too many of us that live around there now. And it's not asking for a lot. And then the placement of hangars, there's a lot of place that they can put hangars that doesn't affect the residents that's there. The Burnhams residents, us, Johnson's. So they're not listening to that neither. They say it's pre-permitted. Well, they can put it any place that, there's places they can put it that wouldn't affect us. That would help out a lot. What difference is that gonna make to them? None, that I think of. Unless I'm wrong. So that's basically a lot of the other stuff that people just talked about, stuff that I'm concerned about too. If the airport stays the way it is, if they put up a berm to keep the noise away, because I've lived there for a long time now, and if they want to increase the traffic, they're talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, they're talking about flight schools there. Anybody know about that? Have you heard anything about it? At VTran? No? Okay, I thought well, we'll find out tomorrow. But, if they have a flight school, that means Saturdays and Sundays. What are they gonna be doing? They're gonna be flying all around. And, we live there. It's a nice neighborhood. And we got 25 more building lots behind my house that Johnson wants to put in. They're affordable. Something that we ought to all think about. There's more of us than them.
Thank you.
Any questions? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's Ann again. My point that I was going to make has already been talked about, so I'll just succinctly mention that Kathleen's article last week in The Independent did a really nice job of showing how the town is struggling with funds and rising costs. And I just wanted to let you know that we need to know that you're looking out for how the airport can benefit the town's needs as well. As you can keep that in the back of your mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Is there anyone else here for something that is not on the agenda?
I have one thing.
Yep.
Doug, we approved what you wanted on the consent agenda. Would you like to come in and talk to us about that?
No. We don't want to waste your time.
No. I don't know if everybody, that's Doug Anderson and Lisa Mitchell from the Town Hall Theater. And in the consent agenda, where we did at the beginning, we approved what you want. So our signatures will be on it. I'd love to hear you talk, though.
Is that right here?
Come up here. Yep, introduce yourselves.
I bet that's Doug and I bet that's you.
We're 15 years old, believe it or not, at Town Hall Theater. And after 15 years, any organization looks around and says, let's look at our business plan, let's look what's working. I mean, we serve the community in so many ways, but we're just not big enough for our dreams and our community. So we started a long time ago thinking, where could we find more space? We actually looked out at Exchange Street for a while. Nothing happened out there for us. And then the diner became available. It died in 2018. And we figured, well, we didn't want the diner building, it's toxic and it's falling apart, but there's a lot there that we could we could someday build onto and expand our space. So that started a conversation. It's 5 years in the making. We're now, working with Red Loaf and trying to plan what would it mean to invest in downtown and enlarge our space. a certain amount. And we just needed, and we'll be looking at grants and all manner of things and talking about it, but thank you for approving this. You want to talk about it just briefly?
Yeah, I would just say thank you so much for approving our letter. We are moving forward with the statewide grant, which will be incredibly beneficial to our plans. And, really what we're looking to do here is not only sort of expand town hall theater, but really expand our community impact, our economic impact throughout downtown, to continue to grow our amazing partnerships with so many organizations. That's all very much at the heart of this plan.
Thank you for the approval. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for pointing them out.
Yeah, well, we've talked about him in the theater and special events in the town and things that have happened over the years, in 15 years, and it's good to see him here
Okay.
making progress.
All right, next up we have Dan and Emily from Public Works.
Excuse me. Good evening. The first item on our list tonight is request approval of a engineering proposal from Otter Creek Engineering. This is for the Seymour Street project. Very briefly, this project is to redo the sanitary gravity main, force main, road and storm sewer from Pulp Mill Bridge to the underpass. So they've submitted a proposal to us for phase 1 budget and a phase 2 final design. The total package is $43,000. The hope is that we get this done. If we get it done soon enough, we could apply for a Class 2 paving grant application in probably March, April when they come out. Because it is a Class 2 road. If not, we would use it for, actually Emily would, for the following year's application. So part of the application for the grant is you have to have, good data on the costs and all that stuff outlined, and that's what this would accomplish. I don't know if I said that, maximum grants are $175,000, so that's the plan, is to use the V-Trans grant money towards that project at some point in the future. So I'm requesting you to approve the phase 1, phase 2 proposal from Otter Creek Engineering for $43,000.
I'll move to award a contract to Otter Creek Engineering for Phase 1 conceptual design and Phase 2 final design for Seymour Street project at a total cost of $43,000.
Second.
Seconded. Does anyone have anything they want to?
Just a comment. We had some residents come to us about the status of that project. Can we just reach out and let them know we're moving that into design?
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
The next piece on the agenda is I'm requesting permission to apply for a transportation alternatives grant to do a scoping study townwide for stormwater projects in the town. The transportation alternatives is very specific to, they want to support stormwater, but it needs to have a roadway basis, so it's good for a municipality sort of work that we'll be doing. We have a number of permits, as I've mentioned, that because we own the road in the development, we're on the hook for those permits getting a design created. So I would ask that those get designed to 30%, which would put us in better standing to go after funding. We would have a better concept to go after funding for the entire project. And then also circle back and look at projects that were mentioned in the downtown master plan that came out in 2020. I think there are maybe 8 or a dozen stormwater projects that were mentioned in there that I want to look into further to see how feasible they are and how much we should be developing those concepts. So the grant is due tomorrow. It requires regional support from the Planning Commission, which we've already received, and then it would require a letter of support from the Select Board also that you have in your packet.
I'll move to approve the submission of the Transportation Alternatives Program grant application for feasibility analysis of stormwater projects.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions?
So, Emily, this is looking at possible projects all over town?
It'll
Is that
be,
the-
yeah, my goal, so we have Mary Hogan site, for example, is a 3-acre permit. That the school itself owns 4 acres, the town owns 4 acres of impervious, so we are each required to treat 2 acres of our individual impervious. And so that would be a site that I would want developed to 30%. We are a co-permittee on the Adams Acres, which is Boardman, Willow, there's another one. What's the other road over there? I don't know. There's a third road over
We
there.
don't know either.
Desibres,
Wilson.
We
Yeah,
know-
so
we
that
know
one,
where-
that has maybe 12 different co-permittees on it, but because we own the roads, which is 15% of the impervious,
Gotcha.
we're on the hook for that percentage.
What's the 30% mean that you mentioned?
So if you can develop plans to 30%, it gives you a better concept of how much you'll be treating and what sort of system you're designing. And so then I can go after real funding to actually do final design and construction for the systems.
30% design.
Yeah.
30, yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Heather.
Yeah.
We love
So
when you go
it's,
after
so
real.
when we talk about like the engineering for Seymour Street, we, like conceptual might be like a 30% design.
Okay.
And then final design might be like 85, 9, somewhere,
Okay,
Question.
any other questions on that first motion?
Can I just make a quick comment?
Yes.
Can we make sure we're up to speed, all in good standing on all of our current permits before we look at anything new in the master plan,
That is my goal.
please?
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
I figured that was the case. I just wanted to say it. Thank you.
All right, moved and seconded on that first motion. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll move to
No, go for it. I was
I'll
gonna.
move to authorize the select board to sign the letter of support for the Transportation Alternatives Program grant.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent.
I am very thankful that we are moving ahead, so thank you for.
I hope you've got the grant written and you're not doing it tomorrow?
Got it.
Next
She's
we have,
driving it up there, but.
Handed it at 5 o'clock?
Next item is a request for approval of purchase of a generator for the Halliday Road Pump Station. This project is currently out to bid. The bids are due next week. And through the design process, it's been brought to our attention by the engineer that the lead time for the generator that goes for that pump station is of about 34 weeks. And so we'd like to get this going so it's kind of on its way when the project is hopefully nearing completion. The little building that it will go inside of is going to be designed so the generator can slide in anyway if it comes later. But we want to get this in the works. So requesting the board to approve proposal from Kinsley. They are the suppliers of the Kohler KG60 generator. It is the same generator and transfer switch which we've used on previous pump stations, Seminary Street being the last one. We did have a discussion at the infrastructure committee about natural gas versus natural gas as fuel versus propane. And we talked about it, and engineer talked about it. Propane would require us to acquire some additional property because of the amount of propane we would have to store on site would mean it'd have to be further away from the building. The gas line is across the street and generated hopefully by the Goodrow district down the road. So it's also a somewhat renewable energy supply versus trucking and propane, which might not be the best way to go anyway. So we've decided to go with the Kohler generator powered by natural gas. It's all carbureted anyway, injected, so propane versus natural gas, not much difference in the cost, if any. But we'd like to settle on the natural gas again. So requesting you to approve Kinsley to supply the generator at a total cost of $26,327.
Dan, is the Seymour Street generator natural gas?
Seminary Street.
Seminary, sorry. I've
It
got
is-
Seymour on the brain.
It is.
Wondering where it was.
It is natural gas, yep. And on Seminary, are we looking as part of that project at that pump station and this similar building generator set up too? Okay.
Cute little shed set back from the road.
Yep. They added one on Seymour Street when they did that pump station, great. You wanna make a motion? I'll move to
great.
award a contract to, Kinsley Power Systems for the purchase of a Kohler KG60 generator for the Halliday Road Pump Station at a total cost of $26,327.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
A quick question, Dan. Is it 34-week, is that a typical lead time for these things, or is it something with the supply chain issues you're still dealing with?
Yes, yeah, it's usually not that long, 12 maybe,
Okay.
but,
This is
yeah,
a good 8 months, right?
yeah, it's a while.
So next on the agenda, we invited 3 firms to come and present to the infrastructure committee based on their statements of qualifications for designing or redesigning the wastewater treatment facility. So Hoyle Tanner, Stantec, and Wright Pierce came on November 17th and each presented they each shared a presentation with the committee, and wastewater staff was able to participate via online. And then at the following meeting, wastewater staff and infrastructure committee discussed the presentations and were fairly unanimous in determining that Hoyle Tanner was the most qualified for what we're looking to redesign our wastewater treatment site. So we are asking the select board to approve that recommendation.
I was impressed with their background and that they've done so many projects in Vermont.
They have a lot of experience with funding.
That's
Which was one of the
important, yeah.
drivers. Yeah, I think that was one of the key selling points with the infrastructure committee.
It was a great, I'll just comment quickly, it was a great process to hear have the 3 different groups come in and present, and then I think it was a really good discussion with staff, wastewater treatment and public works, and the infrastructure committee to make a decision. So I feel like we had a really good process, so. I'll make a motion to direct staff to negotiate a contract with Hoyle Tanner for design services for the wastewater treatment facility.
Second.
You can't win, don't, just sit in this side, it doesn't work.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
There's a whole bunch of motions in the next one. You go right ahead.
All right.
We should divvy these up at the beginning. That contract, how much is that going to be? What level of
The
funding?
contract itself,
Yeah, for that,
Well-
for their design work.
million.
And where's that coming from?
We're
Money tree.
2 parts. We're going to be applying for a planning advance loan from the state of Vermont for part of that, and then ultimately payback of that will be wrapped into the bond for the
Okay.
project.
The state revolving fund.
Okay. Just curious, thanks.
And hopefully maybe some USDA money, maybe.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Exciting, good, thanks.
Okay, next, and the last item is approval of some vehicles and equipment purchases. There's 4 of them here, so Izzy, you can get ready. The
I'm
first
trying to
is,
pronounce all these companies.
Yeah, first is approval of a single axle Class 8 truck. This is a highway snowplow truck and the accompanying body build that goes with it. I don't know, do you have that on there, or do you want me to just
Oh,
talk it?
yeah.
Maybe it might be easier.
I can put that up.
Okay, so there was one bidder for the for that truck, and that came in at $132,910. The body build package, which is the plow, the controls, the wing plow on the side, the truck dump body, all of that is called body build package. The low bidder on that was Viking Chavez for $109,500. We've done business with Viking for a number of years, so we're well familiar with what they can do, and we are usually very satisfied with the result. So the first item is to approve the bid for Western Star Truck for $132,910, and the body build for package from Viking Chavez at $109,500.
Do we want to do these one at a time?
You can do them all, if you
I
want to do
think
it all at once.
Well, they're listed in our thing as
So we might as well go
individual
in order as you read them off, and so, do you want to entertain a
ahead.
motion?
Okay.
Vote?
My time to shine.
Good luck.
I
Don't
move
get
to
nervous,
award a
just do
contract
it.
to our Charles Boys for a Western Star truck and the body build package from Viking Chavez for the single axle Class 8 truck at a total cost of $242,410.
Dan seconds.
Yes, he does.
This side of the room.
I get to drive it when it comes, so.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Questions?
Questions? Do you have questions?
I
Sorry
do.
about that.
I see on this sheet that the offered prices on these are all between 5 and 50% over the budgeted amounts. I understand that vehicle prices have been very elevated for a while, but my understanding is that in the personal side, prices are coming down. We've seen the largest deflation in any sector in used vehicles over the past couple months, and new vehicles are expected to follow. Is this the right time to be buying this quantity of vehicles?
Yes.
Oh, perfect, let's go.
Two of these vehicles that are on here were bid 18 months ago.
Okay.
They couldn't manufacture them, so they're already behind, and they're dated vehicles. Same thing with the wreck truck. Wreck truck is falling apart. So prior to you coming on the board back, I don't know when it was, quite a long time ago, I put together a 20-year replacement schedule.
Great.
And we were holding on to trucks for 12 years, 14 years, and they're in the salt and stuff, so we need to stay on our schedule as much as we can. And yeah, prices across the board on all of these have increased, so. And the problem is if you miss,
Build time.
it's already 2 months since I bid these. If I miss a build, especially on the big truck, it's gone, because the dealers are only allotted so many builds. So then you've already lost another year. You have to go back out and rebid and start the process over again, so.
Do you see any sense that lead times are getting shorter, that maybe there's some flex coming back into the supply of these things?
I believe I read somewhere that the federal government allocated, don't quote me, $51 billion towards the CHIP program, which has been the huge slowdown in a lot of this. So that being, if that's the case, yeah.
Some years from now,
Things are
we'll
going to
get
pick up.
Okay.
Just when the federal government,
Yeah, perfect.
it'll be all
But
set.
in the meantime, we trying to,
Yeah, get some trust.
trying to keep our replacement schedule, Because the disadvantage if we don't is then in 1 year, we're gonna have a big bump, because we're gonna have to do it,
It's twofold really, because as the trucks get older, they take more
Higher
repair and
cost.
maintenance, and we get less as a.
Out of service more.
We get less on a trade-in
Trade-in,
for them.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that one was, we have a question. Chris?
Bill, are they gas or diesel?
The big trucks are diesel. Yep. On the smaller ones, we did put the caveat out that we would give special
For EV?
allowances for EVs, and we didn't get any bites on it, so.
Just waiting for any more questions. Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent.
Second
Yep.
truck is the Class 4. Bid is the third one down on the sheet that's on the screen. It's for the wastewater department, Class 4 regular truck, cab, and utility body. 2 bids received on that, G-Stone at $91,747. Second bid, the higher bid from Stone CDJR for $99,855. Requesting the board to approve the bid from G-Stone for $91,747.
And this is exclusively wastewater?
Exclusively wastewater, funded by wastewater fund set aside.
Okay. Any questions or thoughts on that? Or does somebody want to make a motion?
Yep, I'll go. I'm just trying to move us forward. Do you want, you go?
You take this one, I'll do
Okay.
the next one, you do
I move
that.
to award a contract to G-Stone Motors for a 2023 Ford F-450 Class 4 regular cab utility body truck at a total cost of $91,747.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next one is the Class 3 regular cab utility body truck for the water department. It's the second one down on the list on the page. 2 bids received, one from G-Stone for $86,405. The second one from Stone, $88,521, requesting the board approve the G-Stone bid at $86,405. This is a water department truck, only water department truck. It is also funded by the water truck set-aside fund.
I move to award a contract to G-Stone Motor for a Ford F-350 and Class 3 regular cab utility body truck for the water department at a total cost of $86,405.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
It's not as fun.
It's not. You got the last one. All in favor?
Aye.
The last one is a Class 2A regular cab 4x4 truck for the recreation department. That's the top one on the sheet. There were 2 bidders on that truck also. Again, G-Stone Motors bid was $51,018. Stone CDJR was $63,638. So we're requesting you to approve the bid from G-Stone for $51,018.
I move to award a contract to G-Stone Motors for a Ford F-150 Class 2A regular cab 4x4 truck for the recreation department at a total cost of $51,018.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
For the Fords coming from G-Stone, because there's 3 of them, are they on the lot already? Like-
No.
No,
Oh, they
okay.
gotta build these.
Okay. Just curious.
I actually looked on the lot after I got the bids, and I couldn't touch these prices with what was on the lots.
Oh, really? Okay. I like that. Okay.
That's it. Thank you
That's
much.
it. Thank you.
Before Dan leaves, I would just like
Oh,
to
yes.
remind everyone that he is on his way out on retirement, and want to thank him for his 23 years to the town of Middlebury, and wish him well in his retirement, and just, thank you, Dan. Kathleen said it really well at the infrastructure committee meeting on the 1st, that under Dan's command, because I can't think of anything else, we really have brought the town further along in our deferred maintenance and our planning and schedules and replacements, and so I would just like to personally thank him for his time and effort and service to the town of Middlebury.
Thank you, and it's been, wow, it's been a while, and it goes fast. You never think it does, but it really does. But compliments to you and the committee and prior board members for, keeping the progress going. It's been great, so thank you.
So you let us know when you're ready for committee work.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look out, Orwell, here I go.
All right, next we have the first draft of the FY24 general fund budget. Yippee!
Okay, so maybe I'll kick it off real briefly, and then we'll go into the public hearing on the noise ordinance.
Okay.
Because we're scheduled to start that at 8.
Oh, okay, yep.
So, a real quick overview. I did some major drivers based on the complete budget draft, and I'll get those up on the screen. So, last time I showed you some major drivers and noted that those were just a small sample of the ones I knew about. After compiling all of the budgets, what we're seeing is an increase of $931,000 on the budget, which is a little bit over 11.4% on the 11.8% on the tax rate. So yes, these are staggering, scary numbers. We are going to have a lot of work to do, but like everyone, we're faced with cost of living increases, unbelievable increases in health insurance, over 18% for this coming year in health insurance, which is our biggest benefit increase. Fortunately, we have our workers' comp mod has been decreased significantly, offsetting some of the increase in our benefits budget. So just going down through wages all totaled, which you'll hear about from our department heads, what's driving that, $326,536. Benefits increased $254,100. Workers' comp down $75,000. Vehicle fuel, $23,000 up. Equipment fund transfers, $70,000. First year of our bond for the PD reuse project, $124,000. Capital improvements up $92,000, almost $93,000. So those selected items are $816,000 of that increase. I'll stop the share there. So, do you want me to get started on the general fund budget in the next 3 minutes? We'll just dive right in. Okay. So I handed out copies of the budget. I have some extras if anybody wants to take home a party favor on the budget. There it is. Thank you, Ellen. So starting with page 1 on the revenues. Minor changes in the current use payment and the Act 60 payment. Basically offsetting each other. Those are reimbursements from the states. Water, wastewater, and school transfers. We started 3 years ago a multi-year program to increase those transfers to better reflect the actual costs of our public works administration and accounting services that are in the general fund. Those will need another look for some changes that we're going to be making in the accounting.
So these are the percent of shared services attributable to the water system, which
And the wastewater system.
should be met by the fees in those.
Exactly.
Okay.
School resource officer, which is 80% funded by the school, and that's being bumped with the cost of the patrol officer assigned to that duty.
Can you do line items when you start addressing specific line items
Okay,
like that?
sure. So we're
It's easier than
looking at, the school resource officer was line 47.
Are you saying that's 20% of the total cost is the $93,000?
That's 80% of the total
Oh,
cost.
thank you. The 80, not the 20, yeah.
This is revenues.
Right, we're
This
doing
is,
revenues.
so
Right.
the school is
Of course.
reimbursing us that 80%.
Town clerk fees, we had a nice, during COVID, when real estate sales were booming, we had a lot of revenue come in there. Since that has cooled off a bit, we're seeing a certain slowness in those receipts. So the budget request on line 55, slightly down by $8,000. Dustin will review his Parks and Rec revenues with you, and Dana will review the library revenue with you more. And no change in fines on line 143, page 4. Miscellaneous revenue on line 152, interest rates have gone up a little bit, so we're projecting $25,000. This is one figure I'll be looking at more closely, and run some actual details on that. On line 161, you see a decrease of $6,779. This is the reimbursement that the college gives us toward the town hall and recreation center debt. So as the bond ages, the yearly payments go down, and their payment to us goes down.
Oh, so the TO is town offices. Okay, I couldn't figure out what building it was.
Okay, so with that, we'll take a break.
Okay.
And
For noise
to
ordinance.
the,
Take a break for a noise ordinance?
take a break for the noise ordinance.
Okay, so next we have a public hearing on the proposed amendment to the noise ordinance. The board is conducting a public hearing to take questions and comments from the Middlebury community regarding a proposed change to the noise ordinance pertaining to quiet hours. If you have a question or comment, please raise your hand if you're in the room, and when recognized, come up to the front table. If you're on Zoom, please use the raised hand button at the bottom of your Zoom window to be recognized. In either case, please state your full name for the record before you make your comment. With that, I will open the public hearing. Would anyone like to say anything about the noise ordinance? Yeah?
Good evening.
Good evening.
The issues we have with the ordinance, I'll let you decide whether 10 o'clock is good or 11 o'clock is good, is that when this was created 30 years ago, it mostly copied the Burlington ordinance at the time. And there was a lot of wordsmithing and a lot of rambling around with language to try to accomplish something, which it really never did. The preamble to this ordinance, section 200, without the subsections, is really all the ordinance needs. No person shall make or continue to cause or cause to be made any continued or excessive noise, yada, 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 intended, that endangers or the comfort, quiet, repose, health, peace, or safety of others within the immediate vicinity of the ordinance. Then it lists a whole bunch of different potential things that could be violations of the ordinance. And I will tell you, from an enforcement perspective, we don't care. If it's noisy and we go, we don't care if you're blowing a horn or you're throwing fireworks. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. If you're disturbing the repose, we either quiet it down or you get ticketed. That's the way it is. It's very simple that way. There's also a section at the back of the ordinance where it talks about exemptions. Any activities permitted under public assemblages, street vending, peddling, soliciting, and other commercial activities on public property shall also be exempt hereforth. So there's exemptions to this ordinance. There's the logical exemptions: public safety vehicles, fire engines, ambulances, et cetera, emergency construction work, things like that. You got to fix a water main leak in the middle of the night. And then there are some conditions about construction noises and trash removal, which are fine. But the basic noise ordinance is intended to keep the peace. And really, it doesn't need devices to attract attention, the use of any drum, musical instrument. And I will tell you, the functional application of this ordinance is, if it's noisy and we get a complaint, the officers go and either quiet it down or you get ticketed. It's as simple as that. And we don't think we need all this superfluous language in here, which really just makes the whole ordinance complicated, because people actually start reading all this and say, well, what about this? Well, what about this? Well, what? You can go on and on with this stuff. As far as for quiet hours, I mean, it's easy to put your quiet hours, just tag it onto this ordinance. If you decide it's 10 during the week and 11 on weekends, that's fine, because that becomes prima facie. Then it doesn't have to really bother anybody. All somebody has to do is make a complaint, and it's a violation of the ordinance. It takes away the subjective interpretation of whether the noise is reasonable or not. And I can give you 100 examples of noise complaints we go to which are not unreasonable, which are normal activities, which, due to neighbor disputes and things like that, we get in the middle of. But your prima facie hours are simply that. And if somebody wants to have an event and they can get a public assemblage permit to have the event, and with those public assemblage permits, as they are now, there are conditions put on those assemblage permits. You know, if you get a noise complaint, you have to shut it down. If you whatever, there's a bunch of these different conditions we put on these public assemblage permits. Anyway, you opened it up for comments and turned me loose.
Whoa.
Chief, what is our normal process for getting your suggestions amended into the ordinance? Is that something the Public Safety Committee would do, or does that have to go to the Policy Committee?
This change is from the public safety.
Okay, but it doesn't include what?
We didn't
Chief
get rid
Harris?
of all of the subsections.
That was my question. You just suggested a complete, total rewrite of this instead of just changing it, because all we're doing is changing an hour.
You know, the more I look at this ordinance, and the more with the history, because I was here when we did this ordinance, it was a real struggle. We got to make sure we include this, we got to make sure we include that. Don't forget this, don't forget that. And it was this wandering around the dictionary, picking out words and things that could fill it to make this best work. The practical application of this is, if it's noisy, we shut it down. And it's as simple as that. I don't think we need to know whether the guy's playing a trumpet or shooting fireworks or making some other kind of noise. It really is irrelevant to us, really. And that's really what it comes down to. How are we going to enforce this ordinance? And you can write everything you want in there, but it comes down to, when the cop goes there, he's got to have a really simplified thing in front of him. If it's noisy, it's noisy. And the source is really irrelevant. And I am very happy to rewrite this and put it in a form, and if you decide you want to do those hours, we can put just prima facie hours are this. These are the quiet hours. Understanding that there are exemptions to this in the public assemblage permits.
And if we do a rewrite, then we need to do the whole public hearing process again?
Yeah,
we have to do it again.
you would.
You would, because it's an ordinance.
Yep. I'm okay with that.
I'm just tossing that out as a suggestion, and this doesn't make the ordinance go away as is. It still is, and we can still do this, but a rewrite is simple. Really, pretty much delete a whole bunch of language out of this and keep the meat of it with the intent that it's supposed to accomplish.
I think what you're saying is making sense to me, because you are the one who has to deal with, who go to those places and try to enforce those ordinances. I think it makes sense to see what you are comfortable with, I think.
We are comfortable with noise that disturbs the tranquility of people.
Makes it simple, yes.
It makes it very simple.
I agree.
I can tell you, we've had some imaginative noise complaints over the years with some unusual devices, but that aren't listed in here, so it makes you wonder, is it a violation or not?
Well, it's also interesting because at the top it says that these are not all of the possible violations, right? Intended as examples only and not exclusive of other acts constituting a violation of this article.
Yeah.
Above enumerating, like, don't bang this kind of drum, don't make loud fart noises. Yeah, no, I think you're right that this could be simplified.
Yeah, this is an hour rewrite.
Yeah, nice.
Have it for you tomorrow. That's what
It's
you
not even
decided
an
to do.
hour, it's just a delete.
It's a
highlight
lot of
and delete.
deletions and just smooth some of the language. But
2-minute.
that's- We got it to be a civil ordinance, which makes it so much easier for us to deal with. I've made arrangements with restorative justice. They will take noise ordinance complaints on the first time to help us with that. So it's smoothed the way for us to really apply this a little easier than it was when it was criminal.
I think we have some hands up.
We do. We have Ellen Oxfeld, whose hand was up first online.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, great, yeah. So, I'm just here to speak in favor of having an ordinance. I really think, as long as we're going to have, student housing in town, which I realize through the glitch in the history of the zoning bylaws is not defined as student housing, but like for all intents and purposes, it is. The least we can do for the people who are situated next to that is to have, a reasonable noise ordinance. I like the idea of 10 to 7 on weeknights at least, and 11 to 7 on weekends, but, that's the least we can do. And so I'm just here to speak in favor of the ordinance. I won't speak to, the specific language or whether you list all the possible things or not, but definitely just in favor that you pass something.
Okay, thank you. Who's the next person?
There's someone in the room. Would you want to
Oh, sure.
alternate?
Why don't you come on up? I didn't see your hand, I'm sorry.
Cindy Slater,
Okay.
resident here. I definitely support the idea of quiet hours being less than they were. My only thought was, in terms of ease of enforcement and just, these days, the whole 10 o'clock being the cutoff some nights and 11 others, these days, people in town work every day. The weekend is not a weekend for many people. So I would just say, make it easy, 10 o'clock's it. So that was, definitely support, reduced quiet hours. And I would say I would just go for 10 o'clock across the board, because weekends are not weekends for many, and some of the situations where people choose to live in a neighborhood, you want to be respectful of your neighbors.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. We have 2 hands up online. Looks like.
Okay. Hi, Sue.
Oh, that's Sue.
Hi, everyone. Can
Hi,
you
Sue.
all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks for accommodating me tonight. Hold on a second, I just gotta move my dog. Sorry about that. Hopefully you all got the materials that I sent Brian Carpenter in the board packet. He had asked me for a history of complaints. I went back to, I think it was 2019, knowing that COVID, we were shut down for a while. Complaints against the college for events held up there. And as I said at our last gathering, the college's concern is more about events that the college is holding on campus. And I'm not sure that the public assemblage permit process would cover what's happening on private property. So we want to make sure that however this goes, that there's a way for the college or other businesses, to the extent that they hold concerts that go past 11 at night, have an ability to apply for an exemption or some sort of a permit, because we do have events up there that are really critical to our programming, and we want to make sure that they're not adversely impacted by an 11 o'clock curfew. And in the summertime, the language schools have events outside that do go past 11 from time to time, and that is very much part of their academic programming, integral to their programming, in fact. So between that, commencement events, reunion events, and a couple concerts a year, we would really want to hopefully have you consider some sort of a permit process that would allow for not just Middlebury College, but anyone to apply for a permit to hold a particular event that's going to go past 11, understanding that the reasonableness requirement would still apply. It would just remove the prima facie finding that would really have an adverse impact on us. I wholeheartedly support Chief Hanley's testimony earlier about simplifying this ordinance. It is very complicated and probably very difficult to enforce and doesn't make sense on a lot of levels, given the way that noise is categorized. The college, of course, wants to be a good neighbor, and we understand that in town, having a reasonable hours is important. But I just want to make sure that there's not unintended consequences here by holding Middlebury College or other businesses in town to an 11 o'clock curfew on a Friday or Saturday night when there really could be an adverse impact there.
Okay, thank you, Sue.
Yeah.
Chief, can you, do we have any process for that now? Could you comment on that, just?
The current public assemblage permit is required when there's going to be an event that somehow uses either town property or town resources.
Okay.
It involves the police protection or something, even if it's off the premises of the town.
So-
So there is no event permit per se.
Okay, so if somebody wants to hold an event that could potentially be noisy and be outside of this, we don't have a process for them to apply for some exemption?
No, we don't. Some people will have events on their private property, and they'll notify the police that they're going to be having this type of event. It's not a permit. We're not giving them permission. They're just making a courtesy notification with a number in case they do get complaints.
Okay, so at this time, would that be your recommendation for a business or a college or even a private residence wanting to have an event that might go over the 11 o'clock time?
Yeah, I don't know how you can regulate events themselves on private property. Again, you're looking for a waiver from the noise ordinance, from the prima facie part of the noise ordinance, not the noise ordinance itself. Do you follow that?
Yeah, yeah, I'm just wondering how we deal, like, I think Sue makes a good case for there are special occasions when events may be noisy, but we maybe want them to be held, so.
Yeah, we haven't typically had events at the college resulted in noise complaints.
Okay.
Themselves, mostly, they're not. They're usually well-controlled and away from residential areas.
Right.
Not like the old days. Things were a little different with the SIGEP and some of the other places.
Right.
But that has not been the issue.
Okay.
The off-campus things.
So if the colleges have an event, and it's 9 o'clock, and you call in and complain about the college making too much noise, he's going to respond, right? And it doesn't have to be after that. It's not a carte blanche before 1 o'clock in the morning. If you're making noise, you're not going to do anything about a call.
Right, right.
So.
Okay.
Is there a difference between noise ordinance and the assemblage? There's no curfew for the assemblage permit, right?
No, the assemblage permit is just a permit to use town resources,
And they can do any time.
and there's
It
conditions.
doesn't have to be
Right.
before 11 or anything.
So,
Right.
so I understand what Sue's concern is if changing the ordinance till 11 o'clock, which I think is a reasonable thing to do, then that might, everybody in town might say, well, they can't make any noise after 11 o'clock, which is not true. They can go to 1 o'clock in the morning. But anytime you can call in and complain. But after 11 o'clock, if we do that, if they call, then they could be ticketed.
Right.
Yeah, essentially.
Right.
What an event-type permit does, you're essentially licensing an event with conditions,
Right.
and the license can be revoked. And that's stated in a couple of the things we have here, where we can pull a permit on certain events if they've not met the conditions of the event.
So maybe a way forward at this point, other than the suggested changes, is just monitoring things for a year and just seeing, what kind of complaints we're getting and if we need to do something more or not?
Right, and we can give you a history of noise complaints. I mean, that's simple to do. We get them fairly routinely, usually off-campus and not involving students.
Okay.
Yeah, we
So
just
you're
want
saying
to,
not change anything?
Well, yeah, I mean, before we go to the
Revisit
point
it
of
in a
like,
year.
having the college or other businesses or private individuals going through some permit process. Let's see over the next year, you know, are people running up against this 11 o'clock time with legitimate activities that, I don't know.
I just remember that not everybody works a 9-to-5 job. We have nurses, we have police officers, that they're coming home from work at 6 or 7 in the morning.
Right.
After a 12-hour overnight shift.
Right.
So what is not bothersome to most people could be very bothersome to them when they're trying to
There's
sleep.
doctors and nurses and,
Right,
yeah.
so we try to deal with those things as well,
Yep.
without a prima facie thing in the ordinance.
Right.
Okay, we have a bunch of hands. We'll go
I'd
Dan
like to
first.
continue select board conversations before we bring in any more comments.
Sure.
Okay? And then when we're through, then we can bring in comments. I think we should continue to charge the chief to rewrite this whole document. So no matter what tonight, I would not vote on anything until this is presented again and have the appropriate hearings. So, but I think we should continue our discussion if any specifics we want to be concerned with, or we punt on the 11 o'clock right now till we see what the chief presents us.
So you're intending to table the current motion?
Right.
Yeah, and can I make a request that we have an opportunity to look at the words before we hold a public hearing on it? So we can decide if, you know, like, let's look at the words and decide if we're good with the words, and then hold a public hearing when we're
Yeah.
more comfortable with the final.
Well, he has a committee that should look at it first.
Yes,
It
yes,
goes back to the committee.
yes.
And then what the committee presents.
Yes, please.
And then the select
Public
board,
health-
and then the
yes,
public.
Yes.
Okay.
As a matter of protocol, you would have to approve the language before it went to a public hearing.
Okay.
Right.
Perfect.
Right.
Great.
Okay, any other comments from select board? No. Okay, Chris,
How is too loud?
come up here. Sorry, you gotta come up.
Yeah. Raise your hand, you get caught.
People can't hear you at home.
Yeah.
Chris Cioli, how is too loud qualified?
Oh, that was great.
You may have more. It's a subjective analysis. The police go there, and it all depends on the circumstances at the time and what the condition is, whether it's reasonable or not reasonable. Is it necessary noise? Is it somebody like taking a tree down or something like that during the day? That's obviously reasonable. Any kind of, that kind of noise. If it's deemed unreasonable noise and not necessary noise, there's a lot of things that go into it. The person that's making the complaint has to be willing to testify if there's any court action as to how the noise was unreasonable. That's essentially how it goes. It's very subjective.
I mean, there is no decibel rating that is
No, and
mentioned in anything.
No, and I don't even want to go there because it would depend how far you are from the noise, what other noise is out there that's being picked up in the decibel meter. There's too many things that interfere with that. You just have to go and make a reasonable assumption. Most times, we just advise somebody that the noise is excessive or it's disturbing somebody, and the noise goes away. That's usually how it goes.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, Chris. Can we take somebody from online?
We have Sue Ritter with her hand up.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Lindy. I just wanted to say one more thing as a follow-up. We do have a history of receiving some complaints from the area for different events that we've had, so we already sort of have that. And one of those, you'll see it in your packet, was as a result of a concert in 2019 in the fall that actually went to MPD. If there's a prima facie 11 o'clock cutoff, we will get complaints, and it's a prima facie case. There's nothing we can do about it. We're going to have to shut down. There wouldn't be an exception, and I think that's the real concern here. It will happen, and you know, I think a reasonableness standard should apply, with particularly with a handful of events that we hold every year. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a follow-up.
Okay. Thank you, Sue. There was another hand. Yeah, come on up.
John McPartland. I would propose to the board that they vote on the time change and then come back and reflect on the language. You proposed waiting a year. I can tell you, in the last year, since students have moved in next door to me, I've been woken up at least 10 times.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just to clarify, I'm not proposing that we wait on approving the amendment a year. Collect data on, a little better data on what types of noises and who the complaints are against over the course of the year. But not delaying, making a change to the amendment.
Yeah, the time does become of the essence. I mean, being woken up 10 times in the last year is 10 times more than my previous 28 years living in that household. And I'm not alone. Thank you.
Are you calling Public Works, PD when, the police department when?
A lot of times it's, well, no, I've been contacting Sue Ritter, I've been contacting Doucette, I've been texting the students next door. I've gone over there. I went over there. Somebody set off a car alarm that went on for over 10 minutes on Saturday night. But the party was too loud inside the house, so they couldn't hear it. And
This past Saturday?
yeah. So prima facie evidence would be very helpful to make it less suggestive. Suggestive. Thank you. So I'd really appreciate the change in the hour. Thank you.
Okay. Did we have another hand online, Kathleen, or? No. All right.
I would like to table this until the chief comes back with his changes and have this discussion again.
Okay.
I'll second that, actually.
Is that an official motion of some sort?
Yeah, do you move it before you table it? Is that a?
Yeah, I don't know what.
Action on an open motion?
There wasn't a motion on the table.
We never motioned anything.
I think it needs to be moved before there's a motion to table.
We have to motion it and then we can table it?
So do we make a motion to table this, or do we just
You're
not?
in a public
we just-
hearing, so I think.
Close the public hearing.
We close the public hearing if you've heard
Oh,
from
we closed the
everyone.
hearing first, that
And,
makes sense.
I wasn't not seconding the motion, I was just seconding his.
No, I know, I just, yeah. Closing the hearing. And with that, nope. If there are no further comments regarding the noise ordinance amendment, I'm going to call the public hearing to a close. All right. Now, would anyone like to make a motion?
Do I have to make a motion to table that? Or do I, if I don't, there's no motion on the table, so we're done.
There's no motion on the table. You could ask the chief to,
We could just make a motion to ask the chief to propose a revision to the,
Okay, I make a motion to have the chief make his suggested amendment to the noise ordinance.
Second.
friendly addition to
Yes,
that the
yes.
public safety review prior to it coming to the select board.
Okay, yes, that's standard procedure, but yes.
Your concern is that if we reduce the time, that there will be valid complaints that the police have to act on to reasonable events that take place beyond these time limits?
I have some concerns, yeah, but.
Okay.
But that's not what I'm tabling for. I don't think we need to act on this, I don't think we need to act on this ordinance twice. We just do it once. That's what I feel, so.
Okay.
If you're different, you can.
I think if we, I mean, I agree, we should only do it once, and I think it makes sense to wait a few weeks, hopefully, hopefully a few weeks. But I think the likelihood is that if we move the time, that would benefit the folks living in the very dense neighborhoods. And I struggle to worry that the college will get called as much as, to a degree that would be troubling.
I'm not worried about doing this twice. I'm not worried about doing this twice. I've got no problem amending an ordinance twice in a year. And looking at the dates of the times when the college has run into interference, it's May is when they've begun.
They don't do things outside in the winter, right?
Right, so we can readdress this by May. We can change the hours now, and we can revisit this by May, when
I guess if you're
later events
comfortable
are
with
going.
changing the hours, I sat with you.
Oh, yeah, I was there.
And board, and I agreed with it.
Yeah.
I would like to see some workaround for the college. And the reason being is because if we do change these hours, that's going to, a lot of people just look at, say, you look at this ordinance, you go, oh, well, if it's 1 o'clock, they make all the noise they want, and I'm not going to call. If we make it 11 o'clock, it's
Agreed.
going to be a lot more sensitivity to that. So what's the workaround to accommodate the college?
Or any other business holding some kind of.
These have,
The workaround is that outdoor loud events don't usually happen in the winter. And we are going to revisit this in a timely fashion.
that's right. So why do we have to change the hours now?
Because in the
For
meantime,
non-college events,
Here's, are we gonna change the noise ordinance? Okay, and I'll do apology. Are we gonna change the noise ordinance of this town because of one property? 2 properties. And I know we've talked about this a lot, and I've sat here and listened to it, and I understand, and I'm really glad I don't live next door to them. I really am. But, I mean, it's to us right now. And there's a motion on the table.
yep, give us just a second. Does anyone have?
It's
any-
more complicated to me than, no.
I feel like the problem to the neighborhoods with these couple of places has been significant enough that it's worth considering moving the hours. And I think we should, whatever we do, we should write in that we'll revisit it in a year, and see what kind of changes those have made. But I think it makes sense to ticket, to have a system in place where you can go ahead and ticket people that are being.
Do we understand all the consequences of making a change? Are there economic consequences to making this change?
I mean,
I don't think, how can you possibly know?
I don't know, there's a lot of things that's
So-
why I'm asking these questions.
like, one of the pieces of this, right, is that these prima facie hours only apply to electronic sound-producing devices. So if you're hooting and hollering, there's no time restriction whatsoever on that. It is either disruptive or it's not. It's not part of Section A, electronic sound-producing devices, which cannot be used without a prima facie violation
Right,
outside
and I
of
don't
these
know what that's
hours.
gonna look like when we rewrite that.
I think we'll get rid of all that nonsense.
Yeah,
And it'll
so
just
I
be,
thought.
don't disturb the public
right.
Right.
unreasonably.
And are you thinking of like weddings or like what kinds of events other than the college?
I
are
can
you
remember
thinking?
having a wedding shut down at 9 o'clock that I did, but, college,
What about cider stock?
well, that's another one.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the other things.
there's other events.
There's
you
other
know.
events in town.
That go
Happy
past.
Valley Orchards.
Not very many.
Was hosting concerts at the Orchard, last summer or last fall.
They hardly have any neighbors.
There's neighbors.
So you would like to table it until,
Well, yes, I have a motion on the table, or out here to table this now.
I actually don't think we're supposed to discuss a motion to table, so I feel badly about that. So we need a parliamentarian.
my motion is not to table, my motion is
to
for him
direct
to direct the
Okay,
chief to do
good.
that, right?
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm absolutely in favor of that, regardless of whether or not we also adopt the changes.
That would require,
a separate motion.
What would the timeline?
that would be not tabling what's before us. Because the only thing we have before us is
I agree.
Is the one little thing, the 11 o'clock. That's the only change.
So let's vote on the motion of giving the chief permission to make an amendment.
Do we need to vote on that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, fine.
Do we have a
Yeah,
motion and a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
So do you want to make a motion about the amendment?
No.
Okay.
So we will leave it there. What would the timeline look like for turning that around? Do you think we can have it back to us in January?
So you don't want to change the time?
I'll have it at your next meeting.
Okay, but I mean, does it need to go to public health and safety first?
We can do that, we'll do it online.
You'll do a special meeting for it? Okay,
Committee's here anyway.
to move it quickly. Okay,
Then we don't have to do anything.
okay. So, we are moving on.
So, we'll address all these things in a month.
We will address them all in a month.
And 11 o'clock can be in there in a month. But we'll talk about it.
Sure. But come up, Chris.
If you get a permit, does the permit allow you to go beyond the 10 o'clock if it's 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock?
Doesn't have anything to do with it.
There is no permit for private property events, I think is the
There
issue.
is no permit, and that would be a separate issue than the noise ordinance.
I was just
Entirely-
wondering
that
if
being
that
in it.
would answer the question of making it 10 o'clock and
Yeah, we don't have a process for that yet. It's just a permit to use public
got it.
resources. Okay, so that is definitely over now. We are going back to item 7, the FY '24 general fund budget. And I think we had, who was coming up first? Dana?
I have a book at home, but I don't.
You're first on here, and then,
Budget time.
okay.
I do too.
Thanks for being patient.
Oh, yeah, it's interesting. The library is usually pretty quiet, so noise ordinances aren't a big part of my day-to-day.
You have your own noise ordinance.
We learn something new every day.
So Dana's budget starts on page, let's see,
Do you want me to do the
8
revenue first?
of your, you want to do the revenue first?
Well, it's really quick, because there's
Okay.
really no.
Line 128 on page 3
Yeah.
is Dana's revenue.
There's really no significant changes to the anticipated revenue. So if anyone has questions, I can answer them, but it's pretty much staying the same this year, around $34,000.
And then, on to expenses, starting on page 8, line 344.
Yep, and line 344 is our regular full-time. That's usually our most significant increase, because that's the, that includes the step and possible COLA increases, and it's our biggest increase again this year. A change of $64,000. About half of that are the contractual obligations, and then the other half would be to cover a full-time custodian for the library. In the past, we've had 2 part-time custodians. Right now, we have a part-time custodian and Mr. Mike's filling in. Neither of these have really been working perfectly, and our part-time custodian has let me know that he's gonna start looking elsewhere for hours that better align with his life. So we have an opportunity, I think, to switch to a new model, which would be a full-time custodian with Mr. Mike's coming in 1 day a week. So that's what I'm proposing in this budget. $25,000 from regular part-time, which is the next line down, 345, that would move into regular full-time. So the actual increase request for the custodian position would be about $7,000.
And
Plus benefits.
Yeah,
as
I was gonna
reflected
say.
in the benefits budget,
Okay.
and that is about $25,000.
Okay.
Thank you. Line 346, part-time temporary. This is the other significant change. I'm requesting about $15,000 for a part-time administrative assistant to support the capital campaign, so the anticipated fundraising for the library facilities project. This would be I think a one-time request. I've been advised by our fundraising feasibility consultant that we're really gonna need support to make this a successful campaign. And this would fund 20 hours a week for about a year. So I don't think we'll have to repeat this again next year, but this is what the request is for fiscal year '24.
So Dana, you said 20 hours a week?
Yes.
Thank you,
Yep.
sorry.
So all of the collection development budget lines, which start at 374 and end at 421, those are for library materials, books, DVDs, electronic resources, unusual library items, things like that. I've requested a 4% increase across the board for all collection development lines. We haven't requested an increase in any of those lines since I've been here, just 5 years, and I think for several years before that. It hasn't really caught up with us until this year. With inflation really picking up, the librarians are starting to feel the squeeze, and like the funding we have isn't going as far as it used to. So my hope is to just kind of bump us up a little bit so we can keep building and maintaining the collection in the manner, consistent with what the community expects and enjoys. And then the final significant change is line 431, service contracts. This is an increase to cover additional cleans from Mr. Mike's, including, we've had a pretty significant increase in, hazardous cleanup situations that Mr. Mike's has to come in after hours and do cleaning, things like plumbing situations and stuff like that. So that sort of goes hand in hand with the custodial increase. I'll just remind the select board that there's no library programming request here because we get that funding from the Friends of the Library. They cover 100% of our programming. So they just approved our budget. They operate on a calendar year, but a little over $13,000 is what we usually spend on programs. So that's not included here. But when we get to line 447, library total, our total increase is 71,000. That's what we're requesting this year.
Where is, I haven't looked at this close enough, but where is the money for the efforts with the contract, with the IPL 100? The $140-some thousand for?
That, for the project team, the
Right.
design fees, that was in the
Right.
capital budget request.
That's right, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, and I see you're doing okay year-to-date with your repairs and service contracts and those things. You have not, let me see. Well, your service contracts is up 10,300, but that's for
Mr. Mike's, yeah.
Okay.
And that's gonna be offset partly by the service contracts for the heating system.
Okay.
Dan, that number that you're looking at, I think, on 436, so it's $23,000 for a third of the year, from July 1 through the end of October.
Yeah.
Which is not tracking with
No,
the
that's true,
budget.
it's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so last year, we added 5,000 to our building repairs budget line, hoping that would be enough to cover any increase in in repair needs for the boiler. I feel like it's too early to say whether we're on track for that or not. We've had a lot of service calls in the last 3 or 4 weeks,
Right, I'm
which
just-
wouldn't be reflected in this yet.
Right,
So-
Yep, I'm concerned with the heating and the elevator that could
Yeah.
eat this up
Mhm.
quickly.
Yeah.
Kathleen, you're okay with this then? I mean,
So there's always a balance. How much do you budget for and how much?
Yeah, it's my best guess, and it excludes something catastrophic happening.
Right.
I guess is all I could.
Okay.
Obviously, if the boiler completely ceases to function, we have to replace it. That would not be covered in this operating budget.
right,
That would be a capital
right.
investment anyway.
Right. On the other side is the weekly calls. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it's a trade-off, just like with trucks and everything else.
This has
The
got a
longer
real
you-
poor record over here. We just
Oh, yeah.
bought the new trucks.
I know. The longer you delay replacement, the
Yep.
higher your O&M costs are.
And that's what we're seeing,
Yep.
and we know it, but,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
As long as we're comfortable, we're fine. I think I
I-
just wanted to make a point.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
I have a question that maybe, whatever. Would the Mr. Mike's cleanup situation be improved if the library did a system where you checked out the key?
That's something that we've done that in the past before my time. Something we've thought about, and we could go back for that. I think it would certainly be improved if we had a clear visual to
Yeah,
the restrooms.
absolutely.
A key would probably
At least
be
for
a little
those
bit better.
two. Yeah.
Yeah, we're thinking about it.
Because the one in the community room isn't open to the public unless that room is open, right? So it's really
Correct.
just those two, and nobody can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are, and Mr. Mike's has also, so there's that situation, which has increased, and then there have also been a couple of, like, non-patron initiated plumbing issues with, water coming up through drainage pipes in the basement due to, backups that they've had to come in to take care of too. So it's a little bit of a mix of
Okay.
different things going on.
Yeah. Okay. Just curious.
Yeah.
All right, but there's enough traffic in the library that you could support a full-time cleaner?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. And if for some reason, which is really hard for me to imagine, we couldn't fill 35 hours a week, I've talked with Kathleen that this person could also maybe help out over here if there was time for that.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone have, or do we have any questions from the public? No hands up? Okay, thank you, Dana.
Thanks,
Dana.
everyone.
Thank you. So we have Tom back. I'm calling you Tom, because you asked me to.
Really?
I'm bucking the trend.
Wow.
He has asked repeatedly to be called Tom, and I'm calling people what they want to be called. So
That's
welcome.
fine. I think that's fine. All right, going over our budget, we've had some fairly significant increases in this year, as you probably noticed.
451?
Thank you.
Thank you. The biggest increase is in salaries, and part of that is due to how we developed the existing budget. We were coming to the end of a union contract, and we estimated what they were going to get for pay increases, which was 1% lower than what they actually got. So this coming year, we're now playing catch-up to that. So instead of a 4% increase, they got 5 in their contract, and so whatever's on top of that is making up for that other percent we lost. And that accounts for pretty much the entire pay increase. Was based on that. We've got the new finance costs, as we've talked about before, for our dispatch console. That's going to be going on for the next 4 years.
4 fiscal years after this fiscal year. To pay for that first year, we got a $33,000 grant, which pays for the cost this year. Next year, we're furloughing the acquisition of a cruiser to pay for the cost of a cruiser that will, the radios this year. And then for the last 3 years, we'll be paying $23,000 plus a year for the radio system.
The chief's memo is in your packet for future reference.
We've added 16 hours to our part-time dispatch on Sundays because of the instability with state police dispatching for us. We still don't know what's going on. The dispatch committee came out with a report that simply said we're not ready to make anything different now. We don't have enough information. It's a mess right now. Everybody's just grasping it. Nobody knows where dispatch is going. Our issue is I've got to make sure I have people there to answer the phone, especially on Sunday days and Sunday evenings. We're getting people with burn permits and disposing of narcotics and all kinds of things on Sundays.
Is that the almost doubling of the communications budget?
The doubling of the communications budget is because we had replaced a police officer with a dispatcher and transferred that money from patrol to dispatch.
Gotcha.
The market out there for police officers right now is pretty tough, but it was a lot easier to hire a dispatcher.
Yeah.
One of those police officer positions dispatched in the evening anyway, and so we gave up that position. It was a tough decision, and replaced it with a part-time, full-time dispatcher. So it was just going from one to the other at an entry-level wage, so that softened the cost a little bit. Obviously, gasoline costs, we're anticipating maybe a $15,000 increase in fuel. When we talked about getting hybrids, I have one functional hybrid, the other one not so functional, and one is still being built someplace wherever they build them. And it's the one we ordered a year ago that hasn't come yet. So we're still using our chargers for the most part. We're leasing body-worn cameras. We haven't deployed them yet because due to the difficulty in getting pieces parts, we got some of the camera units, but not the other things that make them work. So they're sitting here, and that's an increase in that service fee. That'll be for 5 years. We decided to go with a lease rather than a purchase, because with the lease, we don't have to worry about software upgrades. We don't have to worry about managing the data. It goes into the cloud. It's retrievable. They do all the bells and whistles and get us what we need. So it just made a lot more sense to go that way.
Is that a separate line item?
That would be,
Somewhere.
Is that in service contracts, line item 495? There are a bunch of things bunched into that.
Okay.
Service contracts.
So you're leasing them and they don't have all the parts to make them work? Hope you're not paying the lease.
well, we started July 1st, we started leasing them, and we've got them there. They came in, but we can't use them yet.
Huh.
Yeah, I'm not happy with it. They're on order, they're coming in.
Don't pay the lease.
If this gets any more prolonged, that's probably what we're going to do, either that or invalidate it and send everything back and start all over again. The problem is, eventually, these are going to be mandated.
Yep.
I think we all know that. The legislature's been looking at that every year, so we're just getting ahead of the game and getting them. We're one of the few departments that doesn't use them. We also had a big increase in software license fees. Microsoft, for the first time, is charging us $3,850 for user fees for Microsoft products. And that's the largest chunk of the software increases. Then there's some smaller ones. It's the annual user fees that you have to pay every year. The traffic box, the little thing that goes out on the poles, that's $1,500 a year, and there's a number of other of those type of fees. With increasing the hours of dispatch, we also increased dispatch overtime because you just have to pay somebody to be there even when they're not there.
So we're on line 511.
And then there's an increase in the equipment fund. That's just, I believe, inflationary. Dan could probably answer that a little better. Some other increases. Our telephone is about a $1,200 increase. We went to a VoIP system this past year, which has actually cut our old phone bill in half. And with that extra $1,500 or $2,000, $1,200, I'm sorry, that allows us to keep a couple of copper lines for backup. We did lose our VoIP system a couple of times this year, but we're able to transfer it to copper lines so we don't lose service. So it's just a backup. Custodial, this is the first increase in years from the service contract we have with Mike's Cleaning. And service contracts all around have increased, everything from maintaining the HVAC system to everything else we have service contracts for. We had to put an alarm system on our fire system. There's just a lot of those $1,000 here, $1,500 there, $2,000 there, service contracts. So it isn't pretty, but other than the body worn cameras and the 16 extra hours of dispatch, everything is the same as it's been.
Chief, on line 485, it says equipment repair and weapon. That increased, almost doubled from 16 FY '23 to 31.5. Can you clarify?
I think you're on fuel.
Oh, am I on the wrong line?
Yeah.
500
Sorry.
flat for,
I'm not
That was
reading
fuel.
straightly.
Yep.
Got it, thank you, sorry. I need a ruler. There we go.
I know we've talked about this before, but there are things you can put in a car that will shut the engine off while you're idling. I know we've
The
talked
hybrids
about
do
it.
that.
They
do that, yeah.
The hybrids do, but you can retrofit.
We looked at those, and they're kind of falling out of favor because they've caused engine fires and a number
Okay,
of other
I was gonna
problems.
say, is this the one that you said caught on fire? Okay.
Yeah, some of them they've been removed. They're just, there's issues with the security system on the car as well.
Okay.
They just
Call
don't.
the fire department.
Go with it.
Yeah, they're right. They'll come laugh at you.
Okay, yeah, I thought that's what it was. Yeah. All right, does anyone have anything else for Tom? Anyone from the public? No hands up online? Okay. I think that's it.
thanks, Chief.
Go home. Have a good night. Chief Shaw?
Give me the pep talk. Good evening.
Good evening.
I bring to you a budget that's very similar to last year's with some minor exceptions to the fuel, electricity, and telephone.
We're on page 13.
Oh, yes.
571.
Key drivers are the transfer to equipment fund, went from $28,000 to $45,000. And then the other increases are contractor services, as Tom said, there are $500 here, $200 there, but it adds up after a while. Fuel, motor fuel, heating fuel, electricity for Station 1, and telephone.
So are you using a service for custodial?
We haven't seen an increase in that, no.
Is it a service or is it?
It is a
yeah.
service, a contract
And-
service.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
What's the conference registration?
That, I notice is an error, that should not go up. I sent Kathleen a situation, so that $3,000 increase should come out of there. So it should be $21,038 instead of $24,000.
21,000.
And that's trainings and,
Yeah, there's a $3,000 add in there and it shouldn't be there. That should be removed.
okay.
So it would be $2,000. That's my error. I was looking for more money somewhere. I thought
That's
I'd
great.
slide it
Yeah,
under
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Right, sneak it in
You
there.
snuck it in there with so low that.
Yeah, I almost got away with it.
Did that on purpose.
Wasn't for you damn kids.
Just,
And I just have a question, not that I would want, but for the second station, How does that work? Are we legally required to have it? Is it based on geography or for the Kings Row station?
It's not, we're not legally bound down there. It's more a geographical situation, yeah. It certainly affects our ISO rating in that area.
Okay.
It's our insurance services rating.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
They can get to your neighborhood very quickly.
Yeah, I got a discount on my insurance
Yes,
because
you
I'm so
probably
close
did.
to the fire
Yes,
station.
you probably did.
We can take that away.
You shouldn't even be asking a question.
No, I know. I was just curious.
Yep.
I was just curious. And that 8,000, I mean.
How's
such a small
the
amount.
call force pipeline? Are you guys?
So the numbers are steady. The involvement is down.
Yeah.
Because of a whole host of reasons, but,
Sure.
yeah, so far we're okay.
Okay.
Yeah. We haven't had to put the help wanted sign out front yet, but I hate to do that because sometimes you get help you don't want, so.
No, I understand. Yeah.
Help that's not helpful.
Exactly.
I think I say it every year, but I'm amazed at how much you do with how little money that we pay.
Well, it's just, we try to live within our means. We feel very fortunate that taxpayers support the fire service as they do, and it's our responsibility to try to bring the numbers in as close as possible.
It's very impressive.
Yeah. We don't have any questions online. Does anyone else have anything? No, are we good?
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bill?
Hello again.
Hey.
Excuse me.
We are at 6:09.
We're only an hour and a half behind, y'all.
This is gonna be really fast.
Thank you.
You got a big one.
As usual, I like to give you the big picture, and then if you have line questions, we can go there, but, basically, Public Works is only gonna see a 3% increase, which I think is great, given where we are. And the major drivers to that are wages, which I'm projecting are gonna be down. I have, even though there's been upward pressure on hourly rates through contract and other things, I've had some employee turnover, so I've had new people coming in at the bottom. I've made some operational changes, which unfortunately is adding a little bit to Dustin's budget, because we used to share people, and I've just changed the way we're doing stuff. That's gonna reduce Public Works a little bit. And some of those other changes include, I used to have a full-time winter truck driver who's now not available, so I had to just change the way we're doing business. Shoved a little bit more over on the sidewalk contract things and whatnot. But anyways, I'm projecting about a 3% decrease in wages. Increases, service needs, tree pruning, I put a 2-year bid out, and we're just not funded where we need to be to trim everything that we need to do on an annual basis. Highway crack sealing, it's just deferred maintenance. We need more money in there. Same thing with line painting. And stormwater compliance is substantially up, I would say. And then increased pricing are things like my road salt, sand, fuel, chloride, which we apply on gravel roads in the summertime. And then equipment fund transfers are up also. I would say if there's any outlier on here, it might be my fuel costs. I'm not sure I've captured all of that, but I used the numbers I had, so. And we've been using some, fair amount of biodiesel. I'm not exactly sure if that was in my numbers I was looking at. But anyways, I've shown increases in fuel, but that might be one that could be an outlier. Line item questions, 609.
3% is a,
3% is the bottom line.
it's a great thing.
Ooh, love 3%.
There's a lot of stuff moving around in the budget, but the bottom is 3%.
Yeah.
Oh.
Anyone have questions for Bill?
I'm missing where the tree, oh,
689
care-
is pruning.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
689 is tree pruning.
Oh, under the service contract. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Got it.
Say, almost half of that increase is stormwater. I think we saw the same thing in capital, and you heard Emily talk tonight. It's a big deal.
Yeah, yeah.
And where, oh, and stormwater, yep,
Starts at 729.
yep.
Are all the cemeteries in town, town-owned?
Cemeteries?
Yeah. Okay. Which are,
We mow 2 of them.
Okay.
Both on Washington Street.
okay, those two.
Some of the other ones have private associations, so.
Gotcha.
You don't mow the one in East Middlebury?
No.
So your neighborhood looks good.
It does, looks very good.
Noisy, but it looks good.
It's a little noisy, yeah.
Anything else? Or we let him go home?
I'll sit and listen to Dustin, but,
Okay.
thank you.
All right.
We have Judy
Oh.
online.
Uh-oh.
Come on in, Judy.
Hold on. Hi, Judy.
No, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Bill, I just want to say thank you, for including or increasing the tree and tree maintenance budget so that next year when we have trees planted, they can get water. I am most grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
All
Judy.
right. Thanks.
Dustin.
Well, I really wish I didn't have to follow the 3%.
Oh, yeah.
So we have some pretty significant changes that are driving pretty high raise in our expenditure budget. In 2024, we're asking for $584,812, which is an increase of $91,210.
Wait, where are we? Which line are we on?
840.
Are on line 842 on page 19.
That's the beginning.
Oh, I had to keep going. Okay, thank you. I just,
Then you'll notice that I did include, because our budget is so line, a condensed version, so you guys could kind of see year to year, macro level of what we're doing. But I'm just going to go through some of the major.
And Dustin also submitted a memo, which is in your packet.
Right.
Yep, so I'm going to go down through, kind of talk through what the major drivers are, and then we can go line item by line item if you have questions after that. So the first thing is which is line 862, is a $15,874 increase in our administrative cost. As Bill has previously mentioned, we're going from 2 part-time employees to 1 full-time year-round employee, which will allow us to get a lot of maintenance tasks done during the winter as well that weren't currently being addressed. And then that also includes step increases for our current employees. We also have an increase of $15,475 in program cost. And what that means is that our programs are doing better than what we anticipated. Most of our programs are on a 70-30 split, so we we pay out 70% of what we make and keep 30%. So that just means that our programs are doing better and that we're anticipating creating more programming. That would mean we have to pay more instructors.
Right, that's what the 70% is payment to instructors.
Yes, yep. Line 927, you'll see that we have a $16,850 increase in our Cucamonga line item.
And that is because one of the 3 summer camps in town is no longer going to be operating, which midsummer. So we are trying to pick up the slack there, and we're going to be offering 20 additional spots to families this summer. So what you see there is the cost of additional staffing and additional field trip and busing cost.
Yeah, camp, oh, which one's
You got
closer?
space for them?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
Which
big
one's-
building.
We've got the
but-
sports center, and the plan is to kind of separate the 2 groups into more age-appropriate groups. Some weeks they'll go on different field trips, some weeks they won't go on field trips at all, but that way we can keep kindergartners through 3rd graders separate from the 4th through 6th graders that have different maturity levels.
What camp is closing, Dustin?
Midsummer.
Who was running that?
That was run through, I don't remember exactly who,
Is that the one that was running out of Mary Hogan?
both of them ran out of Mary Hogan, but
Okay.
Jenny Johnson was the one that was in charge of that one.
Okay.
Um,
Do we know what, I'm sorry. Do you know why it's closing?
Their attendance was decreasing, and I think they got a decrease in state funding.
Okay.
With this, as I mentioned in my memo, the state has, in the past couple of years, given out grants to programs that are increasing their numbers.
Oh, yeah.
So that's something that we'll be going after
No,
as
I
well.
remember reading that, yes.
Line 1010, another pretty significant jump is our aquatics. That's a $20,000 increase. And that's, can be chalked up due to the rise in minimum wage of what we pay our lifeguards and swim team, which is already on the lower scale of the pay scale. It's also increasing the hours of the pool, which is feedback we've gotten from the community. That adds about an additional $5,000 in wages to go from closing at 6:30 to 8 o'clock. And then just the rising costs of maintenance and operating supplies such as liquid chlorine, CO2, and electricity. We have a $3,000 increase in our special events budget, which is just the cost of the fireworks show increasing. But as I mentioned, that's offset by the generous donation we get from the Legion every year that covers that entire cost usually. And then last, we have about a $20,000 increase in our parks and facility maintenance cost. And this is due to the rising costs of consumable goods like electricity and fuel. We're also needing to add money for rubbish removal as we add more events and restaurants and stuff downtown. We've had to increase the frequency of how we're collecting trash downtown, so we're either looking to contract that out or hiring somebody in-house that will be able to, and that's what that covers. And then another 4,000 of that is just moving costs from the capital budget over to the general operating budget for infield dirt and playground mulch. That's more appropriate for this operating budget.
Are we getting shade at the pool?
Yes. Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah, and we actually added a bunch of umbrellas and stuff last year too, and the plan is to keep increasing that and then also build some freestanding structures that will provide shade as well.
Okay. And the trash removal, is that for events or?
That's both
Just-
events and just general trash downtown.
Okay, I just.
We have
I-
about 20 cans around town.
I
that we
didn't
pick up.
realize that was your department that was picking those up. Okay, so you pick up downtown trash?
Yeah,
Okay.
In other parks.
other parks as well.
Well, yeah, that I knew.
And so there's an increase in expense of 91,000, increase in revenue of about 42.
Right.
And so you've got about a net 10%
Yep.
increase over last year.
And I can touch on revenue real quick if you want me to.
If you want to?
Sure. As you mentioned, we're projecting 295,000, which is our biggest jump ever. I think it's 42,350 increase, or at a 16.8% increase. And then just the major drivers on that side is, as I previously mentioned, we're gonna have higher program attendance, so about $7,000 of that is higher attendance at our programs. 20,000 is for the revenue we'll take in for the 20 additional spots at Cucamonga.
That's if we only get 10 participants per week. If we got 20, that would double to 40,000, but I'm just being conservative with that
Right.
number for now. 6,000 increase in our aquatic programming. Our swim team has been doing really well. The numbers have been growing there. Since we've made some great changes at the pool, daily admissions and seasonal passes has also gone up as well, so.
Great.
And then, as I mentioned, increase in revenue from the special events, which is the donation from the Legion. And then $3,000 increase in our non-residence fees. For those of you that don't know, if you're a non-resident outside of Middlebury, you pay a 15% increase on all of our program fees. And we've been seeing an influx of out-of-town people, so we're increasing that account. The gymnastics must be doing great for that. Gymnastics is our cash cow for sure.
Are you adding
We're adding more gymnastics classes, so she's now since figured out how to offer classes in our multi-purpose room so she can go in the winter as well. In the past, she'd have to take the winter off because of basketball. Wow. Yeah.
You're not adding the instructors, just she's gonna be the one.
She's just offering more, yep.
Wow, wow.
And there's enough
jump.
space in there?
Yep.
Yeah, I guess it's bigger than. And that doesn't, mess up the floor?
Nope.
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 I remember looking at it last night. Yeah.
Great, thanks so much.
Any other questions, and then no hands up?
Just an update on pump track, skate park. How's it going? I'm excited.
We'll have another rendezvous with our Parks and Rec Committee where we'll get updates on those. I know you had a question last select board meeting about the crowdfunding on the pump track. That is still a piece of what needs to be raised. The money that you see in the capital budget is a set aside for whatever they're not able to raise in that crowdfunding, and whatever is remaining will be put in a maintenance account for future maintenance of that track.
Great.
There was a little bit of issue with the stormwater permitting that Eric was working with Emily on, or talking about after the last infrastructure committee, and that the crowdfunding platform requires that all permits be in place before it can go. And so they were working on some of those pieces before they could even open up the crowdfunding part. That's my understanding from that infrastructure conversation.
And before you go, I should have asked, oh, no, Bill's still here. So we have a potential grant later on in the agenda for fruit trees at the teen center. Is there, since I have you both here, is there any concern about the potential of putting in fruit trees? We could cite them where you think is appropriate if you. Okay. I did talk to Bruce, whose last name I can't remember.
McIntyre.
Thank you. Oh. Okay. Good to know. Okay. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dustin.
Okay, so we have some folks that are here for agenda items. We also have to wrap up the administrative portion of the budget.
Okay.
Would you like to meet with those folks first, and then I'll carry on?
That would be good.
Yeah.
All right.
We have Professor Hart here.
Okay.
I think he's first up for the historic marker.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, no,
Yes.
it's okay. Thank you. This is interesting.
Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, no, it's interesting observing all this. Thank you. So I did send around a little packet of information last week, a couple weeks ago, whatever. I made extra copies if you don't have it in your computer or didn't print it out or.
We all have a copy.
We've got it.
Oh, you
Yeah.
have it. Very good. Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you for inviting me to be here tonight to make this pitch. I also want to thank Kathleen and Crystal for helping guide me through this. So I've come here basically, in short, to seek your approval for a plaque commemorating Frederick Douglass's visit to Middlebury in 1843, July 1843. So I have supporting information in here that explains some of that, and I'll just give you a little more context for that this evening. But I've come to you first because I understand that when towns do approve plaques, they incur some cost for installation. So I wanted to get your approval before I approach the Vermont Division of Historic Preservation with an application for that. But I'd like to share with you a little bit why I think this is an important plaque and where it might go. I see up on Court Square, next to a plaque there now for Theophilus Harrington. Glenn Andres proposed that several years ago, and I think you approved that. So you probably know what that plaque is all about. There's an enslaver who came before him, and the judge said, I'll honor your ability to be an enslaver if you give me a signed bill of receipt from God Almighty. So that's up there now. But the reason Douglass came here in 1843 was that the New England Anti-Slavery Society, founded by William Lloyd Garrison and others, decided to launch a 100 conventions tour. And this 100 conventions tour would tour communities in Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana. Douglass believed that all the people need is the truth in order to agitate for the end of slavery. And what better person to explain the truth than somebody who was enslaved, Douglass himself. So, the very first stop on this 100 conventions tour was Middlebury, Vermont. So why Middlebury? I think there are 4 reasons for that. Most Americans, black and white, thought Vermont was an anti-slavery state. And so you've heard the whole discussion the last year or two about what has happened to the Vermont Constitution. There's language in the Constitution that's in your packet that says that adult slavery is illegal, but the bondage of minors is legal, indentureship, apprenticeships, etc. And all states, all 13 states, 14 now with Vermont, supported that. Slavery was gradually expunged in the 13 states during the 1780s and 90s, right after the American Revolution. It still existed in pockets in 1843 when Douglass came here, but most of the states had gotten rid of it gradually. But most states in the 1780s and 90s, when the Constitution was written, believed that children, especially indigent children, needed to be apprenticed someplace to learn a life skill, whether it's farming or carpentry or whatever. Vermont's Constitution also believes in debt peonage, as did all the other towns as well. But adult slavery, this is the only state that put it in the Constitution that anybody of a majority age, women 18, men 21, cannot be enslaved. That's one reason. The second one is, I had mentioned Judge Harrington's decision, which is made famous and has been commemorated in the plaque up there now. Third, Governor William Slade, who was a native of Cornwall and an 1807 graduate of Middlebury, served in Congress in the 1830s and 1840s, and he regularly got on the floor of the Congress and gave anti-slavery speeches. So Douglass and Garrison and others thought Middlebury, and certainly Vermont, seems pretty friendly to their cause. So they came here. And then fourth, the Vermont Anti-Slavery Society was founded in Middlebury in May 1834, not in Montpelier. It was founded here in Middlebury at the town hall. So this first anti-slavery meeting, as the press characterized it, took place in the town room in the town hall. And I've got a picture of that. I'm sure you're all familiar with that from Glenn's walking tour of Middlebury. It took place there in the town room. And so Douglass wrote about his coming here, and you have that in your packet. But he says that his reception here in Middlebury was not very friendly. He said that in advance of our arrival, the college students, that'd be all men, had very industriously and mischievously placarded the town with violent aspersions of our characters and the grossest misrepresentation of our principles, measures, and objects. I was described as an escaped convict from the state prison, and the other speakers were assailed not less slanderously. Few people attended our meeting. Apparently little was accomplished by it. That's looking back on that meeting when he wrote this in the 1880s, published in 1892. And several local newspapers did cover this convention. The Vermont Telegraph, which is published in Brandon, ran a headline in July 19th, 1843, "Mobbing revived in Vermont in defense of the priesthood and the church in their alliance with oppression." That sounds like a dig to me, from Brandon to Middlebury. The Middlebury, Vermont Observer, rather, published in Middlebury, praised Douglas for being an eloquent speaker. They said that he possessed an intellectual power sufficient to supply half a dozen pale faces that we have heard declaiming upon the inferiority of the colored race. However, unless he will divest himself of the denunciatory style, unless he will cease to brand the whole American nation as a, quote, nation of liars, a nation of thieves, a nation of scoundrels, unless he will cease his indiscriminate and wholesale denunciations of the clergy and the church as an abolitionist, he is shorn of his strength. So what happened is these abolitionists came here and said, you clergy are the problem. You're not speaking out against slavery in your Sunday sermons. So you're not a solution. You're perpetuating this institution. Middlebury's People's Press reported that Douglas and other abolitionists were visionaries who were ready to break down all the existing institutions of the country under pretense of advancing the sacred cause of freedom to the slave. And they go on to talk about how a small, promiscuous crowd comprised largely of idle boys, these are probably the Middlebury men, gathered in the town room, quote, few of whom professed any sympathy in opinion and feeling with the speakers. So although many locals probably thought of this convention as a failure because it didn't attract very many attendees, I would argue that these abolitionists touched some hearts at least. Less than a decade later, the Supreme Court of Vermont opposed the 1850 Fugitive Slave Act and insisted that Vermonters need not return fugitive slaves. And you probably know that Vermont recruited more soldiers per capita to the Union Army for the Civil War than any other state. So should you and Vermont Division of Historic Preservation agree to this plaque, there's certain language I think that could appear on it. It's in your packet. In the interest of time, should I not read it since you've already pre-read it? Okay, we'll skip over that. So if you approve of this plaque and the Historic Division as well, I would hope to install it in September of 2023. That's when Middlebury College is going to hold a major symposium in which I've invited state and local officials as well as artists and scholars to participate in this three-day symposium in celebration of the 200th anniversary of Alexander Twilight's graduation from Middlebury College. And this would be in 1823. And this also means that Twilight is the first person of African descent to receive a degree from an American college, Middlebury. So I think installing this plaque during that symposium would be a really celebratory time to do that. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
That brings up the timeliness of this. That's why Professor Hart wanted to get on the agenda for this meeting, so everything could be in place for the symposium.
Yeah, the Historic Division says it takes about 6 months, I think, from the time a plaque is approved to the time it's presented for installation.
Do we have a process to approve these, or this is the process? This is presented, and we have the authority to do that? There's nothing, no other steps that we have to do in committees? Okay.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move to authorize the Vermont Historic Preservation Office to erect a plaque at Court Square in commemoration of Frederick Douglass's visit to Middlebury in September 2023.
Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wow. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you for the history
Education
lesson.
to Vermont
It
Historic
appears,
Division.
it appears the college wasn't as liberal back then as it is today, or we're, and.
The meaning of the word was different.
Yeah, it was different then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Sometime I'd love to tell you the whole history of how the college was run, who it admitted and did not admit in the 19th century.
Yeah, I bet. I'd love to hear that.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
Thank you. That's
Thank you
very
very much.
interesting.
Right, thank you. So next up, we have item 10, the Middlebury Tree Committee. Do we have Hans or Leslie in the online audience?
Yes, we do.
Hello.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi.
Leslie.
Thank you for hanging in.
Yes, he's on with us. Go ahead.
Hans, would you like to go first?
Sure. The reason for the grant that proposing is to expand the coverage of the teen center. Right now, they only have vegetables. So what we're proposing is to expand that to include fruit, trees, and hazelnut bushes to start with. I think we are limited by the grant to 10, a total of 10, and we have picked out exactly what we would like to acquire. I think this is the second year of a 4-year window of opportunity for us to apply for these grants. So this is what we have down for our first year, and there may be 2 more years where we could expand our holdings and acquisitions of fruit trees. Any questions?
So this is something the tree committee brought to me, because they know we're trying to invest more in the garden space at the teen center, and it's a great opportunity. And I will add that, in time, there will be some shade happening near the teen center, but at the moment, other than the pavilion, there's not a ton. There's a great tree that gets used by Camp Cucamonga in the summer, but especially with the pushback on the insulating that building, it's very hot in the summer, and I think the teens would enjoy some shade. So added bonus. And we don't have vegetables right now, we have dirt, but hopefully next summer we will have more vegetables.
So is there space on the south of the teen center for trees that would provide shade to the building?
I'm not trying to shade the building. I
Okay,
just mean
just
when they
shade
go outside,
outside.
like a spot to
They'll have
sit in the
space to
grass
sit.
and have some shade,
Yeah.
yeah, to get out of the hot building
Gotcha.
and go
So
somewhere.
besides the building, you just have the canopy now.
Yeah, we have the pavilion.
Yep.
Yeah. But you can't really lounge in the pavilion. We need lounging space. I'm gonna buy some of those $20 plastic chairs and stick them out there. Yeah, no, that.
That's a great thing.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the submission of 2023 Vermont Fruit and Nut Tree Grant application seeking $1,000 in funds for planting at the teen center.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thanks for hanging in, Leslie and Hans.
Ms. Moore.
I still have one more grant
Yep.
that we're trying to apply for, and that is the tree committee has worked closely with the Department of Public Works to identify any strong needs that the urban forest, which means trees on public land or in the right of way, and how to strengthen our urban forest better. So the Department of Public Works would strongly like to get a 5-year urban forestry management plan for the town. and it would be comprehensive framework for the maintenance and improvement of the urban forest according to current and future community goals. Yeah, I don't know, do you have any questions? I think for us, this would use some of the information we've gathered from an ongoing tree inventory this year, funded by a grant, and the EAB plan in place for the town, and help identify, that will help identify needs and help us develop a plan.
Great.
There's a $5,000 match, right?
Oh, there is.
That's what I see on the application.
Okay.
One-on-one match.
Okay.
A lot of time, I don't remember the specifics on the match part, but
Oh, is it in kind or is it?
must provide match valued at.
Yeah,
Oh,
so-
okay.
So so a lot of times,
Yeah.
Bill's not here, but.
Leslie, is part of the match going to be made by volunteer efforts?
Yeah, so it's a one-to-one match, and we're planning on doing in-kind match, a combination of efforts by the public, Department of Public Works and volunteers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's usually they have a plan for in-kind
Right.
matching.
Yep. Definitely. All right.
And as far as we understand, if we have funds and time within the grant time framework, we can also use the time to implement some of the recommendations the plan will have.
Okay. Great. That sounds great. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the submission of the 2023 Community Caring for Canopy Grant application seeking $5,000 in funding to address tree needs in the town of Middlebury.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll just add, I really appreciate how much the tree committee has been looking for ways to make our community better. So thank you for your work on this.
Yeah. Thank you for hanging in there, Leslie and Hans.
Yeah, thank you, and we're really looking forward to working more closely and supporting the Department of Public Works and the town. So,
Great.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hans. So now we're less than an hour behind, so we're
Wow.
gonna catch up.
Nice work.
We're just
Yeah.
you're gonna read everything, because you're the fastest reader. Next, we have,
Are we going back to the budget?
We're
yep.
going back.
We're going back,
briefly.
sorry.
Sorry.
It's
I'll just give you a couple of highlights here on the general fund expenditures, starting at 106, administration. No change in the select board budget.
Oh.
Town manager's office.
Did you say 106?
106.
No.
Sorry, 186.
okay,
Oh.
it's like martial arts.
Town manager's office, this includes an increase for the assistant town manager from 30 to 40 hours a week. And I'll note that our new assistant town manager, David Soffren, is in the audience.
Yay!
All right.
He was the first one here, and he's made it this whole time.
Missed looking at his
Start-
picture. Awesome.
Started on
This was not the
Monday.
best meeting
Monday.
to have him come and
Yesterday.
Oh, it could have been worse.
Did you
Sorry.
find
That
housing?
works.
He
At least
did.
you got a taste of,
Sure.
Planning and zoning, we're looking at cost of living increases and step increases. Local and regional agencies have, at 234, have not requested any increases. The Addison County Regional Planning Commission budget is still in development, so that number will be finalized on 238. The board generally has 3 agencies in a year between Health and Human Services and these regional agencies. So based partly on Andy's desire to have a sit-down with Tri-Valley Transit, I'm thinking we'll have them come in as part of the budget process. ACEDC, we haven't seen them recently. And then I was thinking about one more, perhaps MCTV and MALT.
That's 2 more.
Okay,
That's 2 more.
Sure.
it's okay.
And just noting, we should probably change the name for the teen center.
Okay, will do. Accounting services. And this is, the big bump in that is partly due to our interest in increasing a part-time position to a full-time position on line 251. We've had a lot of transition in the finance office this year, and now we're looking at going to the ADP for payroll, a payroll service. We want to see how that affects staffing in the new year, so we'll be fine-tuning that number based on that. So the other services and charges increased significantly. That's the payroll service primarily. And service contract network, that reflects some software licenses and just increased demand for maintenance. Town treasurer, part of the increase in the accounting regular full-time will come with the appointment of a town treasurer, which will likely be someone in the finance office.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a major reduction there. A town clerk, we're budgeting for a 5% increase in wages here, that to accommodate a yet-to-be-elected person here. So we're budgeting, basically level funding, not knowing who will be elected and what their wage will be, anticipating it will be similar to what Ann's wage is now.
How is the wage set for
The select board will negotiate
I see.
with the incoming town clerk. But to set an expectation, we're publishing a range for that position. Municipal buildings, we have here on line 299, a special project of the town archives. There was a detailed proposal in your packet on this. As part of the construction of the town office building, there was a lack of storage for all of our records, and they were housed previously at the Hannaford Career Center. We were given an eviction notice in the spring. Fred helped us, or basically did all of the work in relocating them temporarily to the Green Mountain National Forest garage bay, where we are now facing an eviction notice. We're looking for a temporary location for these, and the ultimate goal of this is to weed out some of the and archive and digitize some of the records to minimize the problem going forward. We can discuss that at a future time in greater detail. Our public information on line 311 is bumped. Our website needs updating again. Elections down because there is not a statewide or national election this year, down $6,000, line 316. And legal services, since we have negotiated our labor contracts this last year, thinking that we can trim a little bit off that, because that's usually where the biggest legal services hit.
for the website? Is that just, like maintaining everything the way it is, but like
We
a
have
cleanup?
to, what's happening is that our current website host, it's called Revise, is, has discontinued our platform, and so they want
This
us
is
to.
from 1998 or something.
Oh, no,
Now,
actually,
now.
no, 2018.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a major lift to update those. So I'll end there with the administration budget. We touched on debt service, with the major driver there being the PD adaptive reuse coming online for debt service. Employee benefits, we touched on that as well. So I'll conclude my comments there, with the note that, of course, we'll be working with the department heads to sharpen our pencils, look for any potential cooperation and ways to reduce the proposal before you, as is. Over the holidays, since the board won't be meeting, we'll have time to do that.
We'll make up for it.
Yeah.
You're making up for it tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You warned us.
This is not the year for it, but I'd really love like a good overhaul of the website at some point. It's not functional
It is clunky, for sure.
and it doesn't work on mobile. Everything's microscopic.
Yes, I have reached out to both the state and VLCT to see about creating a consortium of municipalities, potentially also including solid waste districts and regional planning commissions, all of which have essentially the same information needs, to go out to create like an RFP and go out to bid for a common platform and solicit common upgrades across a variety of municipalities and pseudo-municipalities in Vermont. So I will hopefully have something to report to you early in the new year on my efforts there, and maybe we can be a charter
Pilot
member
project.
of
Fine.
some kind of cost savings and
We're beta
improvements.
testing, we get it for free.
Oh, is that how it goes? Anyway, we'll see.
I'm sure,
It's a dream, but I can't see why there aren't economies of scale here while we're all trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, no, that is a very smart solution.
You might want to work on the dispatch system while you're doing that same thing, okay?
No
Just
kidding,
put
right?
that in there.
And dispatch. We'll do websites and dispatch. Yeah, perfect.
Okay. What do we have going up next?
Excuse me, sorry.
Where are we? So, are we done?
Been yawning all night, now
Oh, we
she's
need a
making
motion
noise.
here?
Do we,
Yes.
That's for the public hearing.
oh, yeah.
Okay. Are we ready for this motion? I'm starting to feel befuddled, so we need to get out of here. I'm sundowning.
That hour?
Yes, it is. Yeah, so we've looked at the budget, and now there's going to need to be a public hearing on the budget.
Oh,
I move to warn a public hearing to take testimony on the draft fiscal year 23 general fund budget during the select board's regular meeting Tuesday, January 10th, 2023.
second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Got it.
Okay, so now we get to skip. Oh,
Good
Item
job
11.
keeping track of where we are, because
Yeah, right?
I'm having trouble.
we're on 11. Consideration of and vote on proposed charter amendment for appointment of town treasurer by the select board. Does anyone have anything they would like to discuss at this juncture, or do we have any?
I would like to move that the board include the proposed amendment to the town charter to provide for the appointment rather than the election of the town treasurer on March 2023 town meeting warning for voting by Australian ballot.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Right, and grand list, item 12, approval of listers grand list errors and omissions report. That was in our packet and can be found there for the public. Would anyone like to say anything about that or make a motion?
So
Move to approve.
these, yeah, you can move, but I'll still ask this. Yeah,
Right.
bring it.
Okay. I'll move to approve the 2022 grand list errors and omissions report as presented.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded.
Questions?
So these are handled by the appraiser rather than the Board of Civil Authority?
Lister.
The
So
lister.
Yeah, these are because they were errors. Yeah.
These are not requests for tax abatement.
Right.
Which are handled
That's
by.
different, yeah.
No, it's just
Okay.
an error and
Yep,
they,
Yep, you got it
Up
down
and
that I
look at
live in a
it.
mansion and I live in a shack.
they come
Please
look
correct
at
my
your
taxes.
shack and
Perfect.
then,
We hear those arguments all the time.
I'm sure, yes. Did you know my cabinets don't close?
okay.
You get a tax credit for that?
You do not.
Only Andy could think of that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yep.
Okay,
All of my cabinets are broken.
now we have, presented by Brian Carpenter, the town college meeting.
You wanna say
And I'm
something, Dan?
hoping somebody would like to talk about that.
So
It's not
you
me.
have in your packet the agenda, and we didn't get into any depth in
Right, there
particular
was-
on any of these items, but we did touch on them.
You got like
with
3
different
minutes, 3
updates.
minutes apiece or something?
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
very,
that's-
it was
she
very
gave-
brief. There was a lot to go
Lori
over.
wanted 3 minutes apiece, yes.
Yeah.
So nothing substantial came out?
Nothing substantial came out. Dan gave a nice presentation of where we are with the IPL 100 project. We talked a little bit about the noise ordinance and the college's energy efforts.
Great.
Thank you for that update.
And we
What's the
are
cadence on these meetings with the college? Is it quarterly?
It's quarterly.
Quarterly.
We are on item
10.
16, approval of check warrants, which is me. I move to approve total expenditures in the amount of $580,220.15, consisting of $397,866.42 for accounts payable and $182,353.73 for payroll for the period of November 30th, 2022 through December 13th, 2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ugh, board member concerns. You had a big sigh. You go first.
Yeah, I am unconcerned.
Okay.
That didn't sound unconcerned.
I know.
I know, it was
Yeah.
concerned about leaving. Heather.
Just quick question, do we need to schedule a quick warrants review before we meet in January?
Nothing pending right now.
Okay,
I'm sure.
so if that changes, you'll just let us know, but nothing we need to schedule now.
It's me, so.
That was my only question.
I'm not going anywhere. Just call me, I'll come in.
I'm not going anywhere either, if you need someone,
Like a quick,
Like
like
a
online
like-
noon meeting situation.
well, yeah, that, or if you need help with review or whatever, let
Okay.
me know.
Dan,
I don't have anything.
okay,
Didn't think about it.
okay.
The midnight stroll, it's been awesome. The final one is this Thursday, so go out and support some small businesses, get some shopping done.
Go check out my gingerbread house at the Folk Life Center.
Ooh,
You can vote too if you want.
I
My-
will vote, potentially for yours.
My daughter and I created it, so.
Oh.
And the Folk Life Center has special hours during Midnight Stroll. They did last week and then this week, and the exhibit ends on Friday.
Neat.
Okay.
We created the Polkmill Bridge.
Neat.
Did you?
In
Oh,
gingerbread.
awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's fun. That is
She has
fun.
pictures.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be
But I'm
odd.
trying to encourage you to go to the Folk Life Center.
All right, my kids did a kit.
Yeah.
And then ate it, like immediately.
No, we built this one from scratch.
That is very cool. Farhad, anything?
I have a couple things. The airport group was here today. There's a long piece in the front porch forum. If you haven't seen it, please Richard, what's his last name? The one who was here.
Oh, yeah, I can't,
He had a whole bunch of questions in that. It's very interesting. So if you haven't seen it, please take a look at that. And the other thing is, I had a customer who stopped by. She was talking about the noise ordinance. She bought a house a couple of years ago on Washington Street Extension. And she said, it was very remarkable. She said, I'm thinking about selling it and moving on because of the noise complaints.
Washington Street Extension.
I know.
Right corner, whatever that is.
we're one of those houses.
Seminary and Washington Street.
You own that corner, what, she would know.
Yeah. Curious.
I'll tell you what it is.
Okay.
The chief has said that he's not getting calls about it.
Right.
He's not getting any calls, he has no data about it.
I asked tonight that, I can't remember the gentleman's name, that's here and has been woken up 10
John
times.
McFarland.
Yeah, how many times have you called the police department? None.
He doesn't.
So,
Same thing, I told the lady to call the police.
They
and
should
she
call
said,
anyway.
What they are doing is they're approaching these residents and they say, oh, I'm sorry we did this and we'll not do it again or something, but they have the noise complaints.
I think we need people to call the police department so we have a record and they can,
But you have to understand, a lot of times, a lot of people call the police and sometimes the results are not very satisfactory. People are shy about doing that because they don't think anything's gonna happen if you call them. It happens a lot.
Watch too many movies.
At Public Safety, the chief said clearly to Tenney and McPartland, like, you need to call, we need records. There's patterns that we need to see. And, yeah, the majority of noise complaints are not student-related. And they hadn't heard when this ordinance started with us, there hadn't been any complaints on those two properties in like 2 months.
Right. Right.
I just comment, sometimes neighbors are reluctant to call the police out on their neighbors because they have to live next to these people. They're not refugees.
Exactly, yeah.
So, what you might think is just the ignorance of, there's a reason.
Yep.
Something that has to do with the individual relationships with their neighbors and not spawning retribution.
True, but how do you measure that, and what do you have to take action without data? I mean, it's just touchy, and I'm not opposed to the 11 o'clock. I'm not opposed to it at all. I just would like to have this whole thing at one time, and I'd like to have a discussion about the college and how to address the college's issue, which we haven't. So.
and I think it goes beyond just the college. Like cider stock, other businesses could potentially have events that.
Economic issues that are involved here.
Yeah, and I think it goes, and it's, I don't wanna single out the college, I think there's a potential that other places might run into the same type of concerns.
Sure.
Okay. I don't have any concerns.
Do we need to have executive session? Yes? No?
No.
Oh, good.
No.
I think that was a sympathetic no.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Everybody
All
get
in
away from the
favor?
door.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Thank you all. We're only 35 minutes ahead, so we caught up. I'm behind.